Part 11. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 101. Kawilio County seemed peaceful, but in fact, while the three wealthy households were already hurriedly settling their bills and sorting out how much tax they should pay, Ji Changs had already sat in the county government office and had a general understanding of Kawilio County. Kawilio County is located near the sea. It is a large place and has a lot of people. However, due to its remote location and special soil quality, the people cannot have a good harvest no matter how diligent they are. In Angwo, most cities near the sea are not very poor. Kawilio County is a special situation. Although it is near the sea, pirates are rampant in this area. Ordinary people do not dare to go to sea to fish, and even most merchants do not dare to transport goods. Take the water route. People can't go out to sea to fish, so they can only make a living by catching some seafood offshore or farming. But this side is right next to the sea. There is no shortage of seafood, and they can't sell it for a good price. Farming will be even worse. I don't know why, no matter how carefully we take care of the land in Kawilio County, the crops never grow well. Kawilio County is remote, and there are no famous people. They have no background and nothing to offer, and it is so poor. Most of the county magistrates in the past were assigned to Kawilio County because they had no background or were poor and had no money to operate. If you don't have money, you can't provide financial support. If you don't have background, you can't ask the court for money, food, or soldiers. The good-hearted magistrates are powerless. When they leave at the end of their term, most of Kawilio County will remain the same as it was before. There are also those with bad intentions who will not let go of such a poor place, plundering the people's wealth and asking for money from the local wealthy households. Of course, although it is quite common for officials to seek money, most people will still save some face and will not force the common people to survive. They all got their official positions after studying hard and working hard. Even if you are greedy for money, you will not destroy your future. The original owner was different. He used the banner of the imperial court to fill his own pocket, but he used his father-in-law's reputation to directly rob it. This is also due to the fact that Kawilio County is a poor place. Ordinary people don't have enough to eat, and how can they afford to study? The merchants are rich, but they are either less than 3 generations old, or they are more than 3 generations old, but the children in the family have no big ambitions. Without a scholar, otherwise in the original timeline, the original owner would not have been dominant for so long, and he just left the stage after destroying people's families and forcing ordinary people to go to Beijing to complain. Although it seems that Kawilio County is indeed in a difficult mode from top to bottom, Ji Chang still successfully found several benefits from it. First, there are not many scholars in Kawilio County. The common people are not well versed in literature and are used to listening to the court. Basically, the county government does whatever it says. It will not be like other places. The county officials will retire and return to their hometowns. Maybe there are a lot of children of official XXX. Once the magistrate decides to do something that is inconsistent with their ideas, there will be a lot of trouble. Second, although the wealthy households in Kawilio County are wealthy, they are all merchants. The living environment here in Kawilio County is not very good. It is extremely hot in summer and wet and cold in winter. Even burning coal is of little use. The merchants with backgrounds all looked for opportunities to move out of Kawilio County, and those who stayed were the rich but powerless. The status of merchants is low. Those who can have relations with officials are either related to the officials themselves or the officials are also from merchants. Officials who are slightly older are not willing to have friendship with merchants. If they can accept gifts, they think highly of them. These remaining merchants are the kind of people who don't necessarily give money to others, and don't necessarily help others if they ask for it. Otherwise, they won't ask for money in the first place, and they still give it even if they are unwilling to do so. For these remaining merchants, the biggest supporter they can rely on is the county magistrate Ji Changs. No one in Kawiliu County has any background. Everyone is either miserable or poor. But it's a good thing for Ji Changs. He has no background. As the county magistrate, he is the boss. For now, Kawiliu County is his one-stop shop. Changing the difficulty mode in his hard to easy mode, Ji Changs put back the county annals he had read and began to recall the Shangguan above. Very good, the superior officers are all very old, and they will reach the age of retiring and returning to their hometowns soon. The mentality of the old officers of this age is generally very stable. The closer they are to retirement, the more careless they will be. Anyway, you guys can do whatever you want, and don't involve me in anything. I want to wait quietly for retirement. However, these bosses never expected that there would be such a fool as the original owner. They always wandered around a group of sheep, plucking some wool from this sheep and plucking some hair from that sheep. Who told you to catch a sheep and kill it? As a result, the original owner got what he deserved, and the bosses didn't fare well either. Of course, it would be different if it was Ji Changs. He called the yamen servant from outside to come in and asked him to find a field where crops were being grown, pack some soil and deliver it to the inner yamen. The yamen servant thought it was a good thing to be summoned by the adults. When he heard this request, he looked at Ji Changs. His eyes suddenly became very confused and complicated. But he did not dare to say, "Sir, if you want a lot of soil in our yard, just dig it. Why bother?" Now that a new official has taken office, everyone wants to perform well in front of the magistrate who is married to the daughter of a high-ranking official in the capital. Let alone digging, even digging indescribable will do. After waiting for the government servant to leave, Ji Chang stood up and walked out, shaking off his sleeves. The officer outside quickly saluted, "Sir." "Well, there's no need to follow me. I'll go back to the inner office." The inner government office is the inner courtyard of the county government office. Angwo does not stipulate that the magistrate must live in the county government office. Everyone has money to buy a house to live in, and if they have no money, they live in the county government office. However, most county magistrates choose to live in the county government office. After all, it is usually necessary to leave the place after 3 years. If you buy a house and wait until you move out, it will not be easy to deal with. If you rent a house, 3 years is too long. If something happens to the owner, it will be embarrassing and the house needs to be repossessed. The original owner did not want to live in the county government office. After all, Kawiliu County was so poor. The wealthy county magistrates in the past dynasties went out to live directly, while those who had no money did not have the money to repair the county government office. So now, the back office is leaking, tiles are broken, doors are broken, windows have fallen, beds have collapsed, and all kinds of things. The original owner couldn't bear the grievance, so he was thinking of changing his place to live. But the problem was that he had spent a lot of money in the capital and had no money, so how could he afford a house? Miss Wei is rich, but it is the wife's dowry. At this time, the original owner still wants to be ashamed and cannot say that he wants his wife to use the dowry to supplement the family income, although he does think so. What he was thinking was that Miss Wei was everyone's daughter and had been pampered since she was a child. She would definitely not be able to bear this hardship. Even if he didn't mention it, Miss Wei would mention it herself. When that time came, he acted like women are delicate, complied with Miss Wei's wishes, and successfully changed houses. As a result, what the original owner didn't expect was that although Miss Wei was raised in a noble family, she was not the kind of squeamish person. When she knew that her husband's family was just a merchant that was slightly richer than the farmers, she was already prepared to endure hardships with her. Her husband had little financial resources. As an official, he always had to socialize with his colleagues, give gifts to superiors, and give gifts to relatives and friends every year. It's all a big expense. The imperial salary was only a small amount. Although Miss Wei had a dowry, it was not inexhaustible. Her parents loved her so much that they gave her a lot of dowry. It was impossible to ask her parents' family for help. All she had to do was to increase revenue and reduce expenditure. The shop makes money. How can you ask for a change of residence just because you can't get used to living in the county government office? It's a pity that Miss Wei was completely satisfied for her husband, but she only received cold treatment from him. When Ji Chang's returned to the inner office, Miss Wei was sitting in the sun, doing needlework carefully. She is the eldest daughter in the family, and she has a younger brother. Like her younger brother, she is of the same generation, and her first name is Wei Junkin. Since there are no other sisters in the family, she is always called girl. At this moment, a girl who came with her as a dowry came out to dry the quilt. Seeing her doing needlework, she quickly put the quilt on the prepared place and stepped forward and said, "Didn't the girl not sleep last night? It's better not to do needlework. Come on, take a good rest and let your servant do whatever you need. There's nothing else to do. It's just free time anyway. There's nothing wrong with doing some sewing." Wei Junkin smiled and kept his hands on. The girl looked over and saw that these were men's clothes. She immediately understood and said with a smile, "It turned out to be made for my uncle." The girl had to make it with her own hands. An old woman carrying a basin walked into the yard. After hearing this, she scolded her sternly, "Tuier, why can't you change your words? You've said it so many times that you want to call me madam." The young girl stuck out her tongue in embarrassment and saluted, "Tuier remembers it. Thank you, Mother Zhang, for the tip." She was afraid of being scolded again, so she hurriedly found an excuse that there were bedding in the room to dry and trotted into the house. This girl was only 14 years old. She was cute and cute. Wei Junkin liked her so much that when he saw her running away, he smiled and said to Zhang's mother, "Mom, don't blame Kuier. I've been so bored these days. Thanks to her for making me laugh and make me happy. She also wants to make me happy when she calls me girl." Although she said this with a smile, Zhang's mother sighed heartbrokenly and put down the wooden basin in her hand. "Madam, don't worry, the new official will be busier when he takes office. Don't you think the same is true for Mr. Wei? If you have something to do, you have to do it before you go back to the yard. When the master is done, he will definitely come back to accompany his wife." Wei Junkin listened to what she said and put down the needle and thread in his hand in a daze. "But these days, my husband rarely talks to me, even if we sleep together. I also heard that he entertains some merchants outside. According to the rules, the husband and wife should attend together, but my husband didn't say a word to me." Having said this, I found out that he had gone to entertain a merchant after I sent someone to ask my husband to come back for dinner. There are some words that are inappropriate to say, and Wei Junkin has been holding them back for a long time. No matter how gentle her temper is, she will still feel uneasy if her husband is always cold. These words can't be said to those little girls who don't know the world, they can only be said to Zhang's mother. Zhang's mother saw Wei Junkin's fear of losing her husband's love and confusion about the future in Wei Junkin's eyes. She was Wei Junkin's nanny. She had always watched Wei Junkin grow up, and she loved her as a daughter in her heart. Now she looks at how she used to be. The girl who had been calm and gentle began to feel uneasy and frightened, and she felt distressed and anxious for her in her heart. Maybe my master's hometown is different from the capital. There are rules in the south and rules in the north. Madam, don't think too much about it. You were born in the blooming season, and you are sincere to me. I am AI important. It's too late for you. Although she also felt that Ji Chang's was neglecting her own girl, she could only comfort Wei Junkin, who was extremely insecure. Madam, think about it, how kind the master was to you before. Now it's just because of the busy work that there is no free time. It will be fine when the master is finished. Although she said so, Zhang's mother didn't think so in her heart. She looked at her and saw that although this uncle was a talented person, he was not as good as he appeared. When he was in the capital before, my uncle was indeed gentle and considerate towards the girl, and the young couple had a very affectionate relationship for a while, but after coming to Kawiliu County, his attitude became visibly cold. Zhang's mother didn't want to think favorably of the man she married, but her uncle made it too obvious. When he was nice to the girl in the capital, it was because the master was in the capital and was close. If he was not nice to the girl, he would be sure to file a complaint. When we came to Kawiliu County, the sky was high and the emperor was far away. The master could no longer support the girl, so naturally there was no need to pretend. Zhang's mother already had an ominous premonition in her heart. Especially after Ji Chang's hosted a banquet with merchants. When general officials come to the county government, shouldn't they first deal with the affairs left behind? However, their uncle first entertained the merchants. What does the merchant have to offer? What do they have besides money? I'm afraid my uncle is hosting a banquet with merchants just to ask for money. And a person who goes to local businesses to ask for money as soon as he takes office, can he be a good official? Zhang's mother didn't want to talk about this and let Wei Junkin, who was already uneasy, think too much, but she grew up in the Wei family, served Mrs. Wei since she was a child, and married the only son of the second steward in the mansion. Later, Wei Junkin was born, and Mrs. Wei couldn't trust others, so she asked if she would like to be a wet nurse. She agreed without any hesitation. After being in the mansion for so long, Zhang's mother also knows many things. Therefore, she also knows very well that if this uncle is really not a good official, what he does will not only affect the girl, but also Mr. Wei in the mansion. She hesitated for a while, then gritted her teeth and told Wei Junkin her guess. Wei Junkin looked up at her in shock. Is this really happening? Zhang's mother said quickly, this is all the old slave's guess. I only know that the master has hosted a banquet for the merchants. Madam, don't worry. It may be for other things. You can ask the master when he comes back tonight. If nothing happens, of course it will be good. If something happens, I'm afraid it will be troublesome. Wei Junkin nodded solemnly, no longer thinking about her husband's indifference to her. She has also been studying since she was a child, and she knows that although the county magistrate has a small official position, he is also an official of his parents. If her husband is really like this, she will give advice no matter what. When Ji Chang's came back, he could tell that Wei Junkin had something to say to him. This girl was so good at hiding it. Her pretty face had "I have something on my mind" written all over it. He pretended not to notice and went straight forward. When Wei Junkin saluted him, he glanced at the clothes next to him and held them in his hand. With a smile on his face. Is this made for me? Madam is interested. The original owner has stopped smiling these days and rarely talks to Wei Junkin. Now that he smiles like this and his tone is so gentle and relaxed, Wei Junkin's originally nervous mood has relaxed a little. She quietly looked at Ji Chang's face. My husband seems to be in a good mood today. Yes, I have been worrying about official duties these past few days. Today, the official duties are out of the way, so I am naturally in a much better mood. Ji Chang's put down his clothes and looked at Wei Junkin with an apologetic look. My husband has been busy with official duties these days, and I haven't talked to my wife properly. Since I happen to have some free time, why don't we go out for a walk later? It's also a good time to take a look. This weeping willow style. Wei Junkin was a little surprised and relieved in her heart. It seemed that she had thought too much and thought that her husband was neglecting her. Sure enough, she had to ask Mother Zhang about such a thing. After all, she is older and can see people and things accurately, and she can guess the reason why her husband has been so cold these days so accurately. In fact, he was really just making up some random words to appease Wei Junkin's Mother Zhang. What she was talking about was actually true. While Zhang's mother was happy for Wei Junkin, she also felt that she really judged a gentleman's heart with a villain's heart. Sure enough, when I was in the Wei family and chatting with the servants in the mansion, I heard a lot of gossip in each mansion. Mother Zhang felt relieved knowing that her uncle was not the kind of person who would abuse their girl from afar. Ji Changs and Wei Junkin went out for a walk. Kawiliu County was too poor. Although there were stalls on the street, most of them sold seafood, fish, and shrimp, so the two of them moved to another street. Gold and Silver Tower. Ji Changs looked up at the gold shop in front of him, smiled and stretched out his hand to Wei Junkin next to him. I haven't bought any jewelry for my wife since she married me. Let's go in and take a look. Wei Junkin put his hand into her husband's palm in public. Wei Junkin felt a little embarrassed, nodded with a blushing face, and the two of them entered the gold and silver building together. But as soon as we stepped in, the clerk came over with a nod and a bow. I'm sorry, we're not selling anything today. You two can go and have a look elsewhere. Ji Changs asked, don't buy anything? Why don't you sell the good ones? The boss of the gold and silver building was wiping his sweat with a handkerchief while asking the accountant to quickly settle the accounts. When he heard this familiar voice, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Ji Changs at the door in disbelief. "Yes, sir." The voice was full of panic. When Ji Changs heard someone shouting, he looked over. When he saw the owner of the gold and silver building, he smiled. "Mr. Zhang, that's right. You run this gold and silver building." Mr. Zhang. He had just received a letter saying that the new magistrate was not a corrupt official at all as they thought. He specially invited him to a banquet to ask for money. In fact, he wanted to pretend to be greedy so that they could relax their vigilance. In fact, he was investigating their tax evasion. In the past, there were some magistrates who were noble, some who were greedy for money, and some who were neither noble nor greedy for money, but none of them were like Ji Changs. Temudi is so insidious. Fortunately, through some strange combination of circumstances, they still found out about the magistrate's plan, otherwise they would have been tricked to death without even knowing about it. Because Ji Changs left a deep impression on him before, Dogecoin is sinister and loves to dig holes. When Mr. Zhang saw the two coming, the first thing he said was, he's coming, this insidious Xinzi County is here to check them out." He tightened his face nervously, and hurriedly stepped forward to salute the two of them. After he had finished saluting, he straightened up and gave Ji Changs a dry smile. "What's the reason for your coming here?" Ji Changs smiled and said calmly, "Of course I came to the gold and silver building to buy jewelry." "Master Zhang, haha. I believe you are evil. How could he come to the gold and silver shop he opened just to buy jewelry at such a juncture? The one with the most tax evasion under his name is the gold and silver building. After all, gold and silver are so easy to tinker with. This new magistrate must have come to Jinyinlu for this reason." "What? The magistrate's wife is here too? Otherwise, how can we say that the magistrate is insidious, and he actually has a bunker? He must have known that his gold and silver building was closed, so he came to check it out in person. After all, it was impossible for them to kick people out when the magistrate came in person." Master Zhang thought about it and tried his best to put on a flattering smile on his face. Yes, my lord said, "Why are you standing there in a daze? Why don't you welcome your lord in quickly?" While he was talking to Ji Changs and the others with a flattering look on his face, he made a gesture of waving towards the accounting room with the back of his hand. The accountant understood and quickly collected the account books. Ji Changs was particularly friendly to the people. "If something happens here and you can't open the door, it doesn't matter. I and my wife will go to another house to have a look. It's okay." "How could something happen?" Mr. Zheng replied in a very alert manner. "It's just that the dust has been heavy recently. I asked people in the store to clean up the dust. I was afraid that the dust would stain the clothes of customers, so I closed the door temporarily. Sir, come and take a look. These are the best jewelry in our gold and silver building. Ji Chang's looked at the jewelry. Not bad, not bad. By the way, Mr. Zheng, I accidentally obtained a formula that can be used to make items that can clean hands and wash clothes like soap. It is smoother and more effective than soap. With Yuanhua from Kawiliu County, after using it, there will also be the faint fragrance of Yuanhua. I want to set up a special place to make this thing, and the silver earned will be used to improve the weeping willows. What do you think? It's like something like pandan, it's smoother and more effective than pandan, and it also has the fragrance of Yuanhua. Why doesn't he believe it so much? There is no such thing in the world. If it were, it would have become popular in the capital long ago, and it would not be their turn. Mr. Zheng didn't believe it, but when facing his parents and officials, he had to believe it even if he didn't believe it. Yes, yes, you love the people like your own children, and you work hard for the weeping willow. The common people admire you. Ji Chang's nodded. You are from this county, and you think it's good, so I'm relieved. But now I have a problem, and I would like to ask Mr. Zheng to give me an idea. The county is in deficit, but if we want to cover the production of pancakes, the factory. He spoke in a formal manner, and he kept saying it in 2 words, no money. You see, I don't have any money. Your gold and silver building is running so well. Please teach me how to do business so that I can make money to build a factory. After finishing speaking, he looked at Mr. Zheng. His eyes were sincere and his tone was sincere, and it seemed like he was really asking for advice. Master Zheng thought of something else. No money. That's great. He lacks everything except money. Now he is worried about the magistrate trying to clear them up. Now the magistrate is short of money. If he sends warmth at this moment. And he's not Huailu, didn't you hear what the magistrate said? This is to improve Weeping Willow and for the people. When he gives money, it is a righteous act and it is for the people. Even if this little thing doesn't make money, if the magistrate accepts his favor, he will be embarrassed to deal with him in the future. Mr. Zheng's eyes almost shone, and he hurriedly said, Your Excellency is so dedicated to the people. Although the grassroots people are small and weak, they still want to do something for me, Weeping Willow. Why don't we get this money from the grassroots people? The magistrate's eyebrows were furrowed, and he looked very disapproving. Yes, of course he should disagree. After all, he was planning to catch them all in one fell swoop. If he helped, it would be difficult for the magistrate to do so. Mr. Zheng consciously saw through it, became energetic, and hurriedly promoted himself. What does it mean to be patriotic wholeheartedly, how to be born in a weeping willow and why you are willing to give money for the weeping willow, and how to learn from adults who love the people. The rainbow fart blew out in waves, which made Ji Chang's eyebrows slightly relaxed. Since Mr. Zheng has recommended himself like this, I will not let you suffer any loss. The fragrant pancreas made will be given priority to Mr. Zheng. Promised, promised. This is not giving money, this is spending money to buy a get-out-of-jail-free card. Master Zheng breathed a sigh of relief. The magistrate is not that scary and unpredictable. Look, it's still easy to coax. Didn't this successfully give away the money? He wiped the sweat on his head with a handkerchief, while Ji Chang's over there looked at Wei Junkin who was trying on the bracelet and showed a harmless smile. Look, the starting capital is available. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 102. What kind of pancake factory will the newly appointed magistrate plan to build? This news was spread by thoughtful people, Ji Chang's and his government officials, and quickly spread throughout Kawiliu. Most of the people were at a loss. They gathered together and inquired in 2s and 3s. I heard that fragrant pancreas is more effective than pancreatic juice, and it also has the fragrance of our weeping willow. It must be very expensive. It was the money provided by Mr. Zheng's family. The factory is built on the west side. It seems to be almost completed. I went to visit my second uncle who lives there a while ago. He told me that someone brought a lot of strange things in. They said they were going to make distilled water. Do you know what this distilled water is? Everyone was talking lively, and just as they were talking, a young man in shabby clothes passed by in a hurry. Someone among the people who were talking stopped him with sharp eyes. Bien Erlang, you are the most knowledgeable among us, did you know what is distilled water? The young man known as Benjiro could only stop and answer, I have only been studying in the school for a few years. How can I be called good at learning? I have never heard of what you are talking about. After he answered, he wanted to continue on his way, but the person who stopped him said another sentence, I heard that this fragrant pancreas factory is going to open an accounting office. Bien Erlang, you have studied in school, do you want to try it? This fragrant pancreas factory is owned by the county magistrate. Yes, if you can get in, you will be considered a member of the Yamen, and you will have the support of the Yamen behind you, so you won't be afraid of being bullied. Bien Erlang looked slightly moved. He is 17 years old. Although his family is just an ordinary farmer, they still gritted their teeth and put together the money to send him to school. He was studying well at first, but unexpectedly, the family suffered a big change. His father passed away, and he had 5 younger siblings to support. At this moment, the third uncle took advantage of the situation and tricked his illiterate mother into signing a contract to sell his sister. In order to redeem his sister's family debt, he had to leave school and work around to earn money to pay off the debt. It's not like Bien Erlang never thought about being a bookkeeper in the past, but Mr. Bookkeeper is a good job in Kawiliu County. Most of the bookkeepers work until they are old, and then recommend their son/grandson/relatives to their masters, so there are no vacancies at all. To Benjiro. As for the ordinary scholar's job of copying books/writing letters to others, he is so young and can't compare to those who are already doing this. So in the end I had to do manual labor. Although it was hard work, I was able to support the family. Now that he heard that the pancake factory wanted to collect the accountant, he was immediately moved. Knowing that the person who suggested him to try it was for his own good, Bien Erlang saluted him gratefully and hurried towards the place where the fragrant pancreas factory was rumored to be. The reason why it is said to be a rumor is that the place is very remote and there are few people living there. Even if the people in the county know that there is a factory built by the county magistrate, no one is bored enough to go to such a remote place to see what it is like. What does it look like? Bien Erlang was not willing to spend money to take a donkey cart, so he walked there on foot. As he walked, he wondered in his heart why the magistrate wanted to build a factory in such a remote place. When he almost reached the place and looked at the scenery ahead, he felt he understood. Although this place is remote, the scenery is excellent. The wild yuen trees around are in their flowering season. The beautiful yuen flowers are blooming on the trees. When the wind blows, the surrounding area is filled with the fragrance of flowers. At first glance, it looks like he is painting. Literary men in Angwo originally liked to pay attention to the landscape. Although he shouldered the burden of the family, Bien Erlang, who was still a scholar deep down, suddenly realized in his heart, and he also began to yearn for the newly appointed magistrate. The magistrate has specially chosen such a beautiful place. He is worthy of being a disciple of the emperor. When he arrived at the factory, as soon as he approached, he found several tables set up at the entrance. Someone was sitting behind the tables, and there were paper, ink, pens, and inkstones on the table. When he saw him coming, the nearest person asked him, "Yes, what are you here for?" "But you're here to apply." Bien Erlang hurriedly stepped forward to salute and answered exactly. Before he could say that he wanted to apply for the post of Mr. Accountant, the man had already sat down. He even stretched out his hand to signal him to sit opposite him, and then dipped his pen skillfully in ink. Fall on the paper. What's your last name? Where do you live? Bien Erlang had applied for the post of accountant several times before, but he had never seen anyone like this. However, he sat down obediently and answered honestly, my surname is Bien, and my given name is Ruo. I haven't chosen the title yet, Weeping Willow Man. Do you have a reputation? Have you studied? How many years have you studied? Which school did you attend? Bien Erlang all answered one by one. After answering a series of questions such as why do you want to work with us as an accountant? Can you live and eat in the factory? Will you accept only 3 days off per month? Would you like to have a colleague who works as an accountant and also take care of the human resources department? Except that he didn't understand what personnel affairs meant, Bien Erlang asked clearly before answering, and everyone else agreed one by one. When a piece of paper was full, the man stopped writing with satisfaction, and randomly selected 2 papers from a pile of papers on the side and handed them to Ben Erlang. You do these, and if you can get half of them right, you will be considered qualified. Bien Erlang didn't dare to slack off and quickly took it and looked at it carefully. The first question is, it is known that our fragrant pancreas factory has 358 people making pancreas, and each person has a basic monthly salary of 2 coins. 13 people have family affairs this month, and 5 of them will come to the factory in 3 days. 5 people will arrive in 7 days, and the other will arrive in 15 days. According to regulations, 33 Wen will be deducted for 1 day and 66 Wen for 2 days. Based on this, I asked the factory how much money the factory will pay in total this month. This was the first time Ben Erlang saw a question in this form, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Seeing him like this, the person sitting behind the table also showed a bit of pride in his eyes. How about it, but you are having a hard time with our question. Bien Erlang blinked blankly, raised his head and asked, does a pancreas maker really have 2 cents a month? Of course, we won't test people with fake questions. Bien Erlang swallowed hard and said, I'm not going to apply for accounting office. Can I apply for pancreas maker instead? The man laughed at what he said, you have to think clearly, the accounting office only costs $4 a month. Benjiro. He has been working hard for a month now and can't even make a penny. Now he has an opportunity of 4 penny in front of him. How could he not cherish it? After answering carefully, Bien Erlang carefully handed the paper to the man after checking it many times. After finishing the sentence, the man nodded to Bien Erlang, who was holding his breath and waiting for an answer, okay, you are qualified. Bien Erlang breathed out excitedly, and before he could relax, the man pulled out another piece of paper and handed it to him, here, sign the employee contract. After signing, go back and wait for news. We will verify the personal content you wrote before. If it's correct, someone will come to your house tomorrow. There are many things written in the contract, but the one that attracts Bien Erlang the most is that if he signs the contract, as long as Mr. G wants, he can only work for Mr. G in the next 10 years. He is not allowed to take on private work and must obey Mr. G's arrangements. Otherwise, he will breaking the contract. Of course, the contract also stated that Master G must give him a monthly salary of at least 4 yuan. Such a contract, which is considered to be the best in modern times, is almost a super benefit in the eyes of Bien Erlang. Where can I find such a good thing if I can get 4 yuan a month for 10 years? Master G was so generous and gave them the opportunity to earn monthly income for 10 years. Benjiro signed his name without hesitation, full of expectations for the future. Ji Changs, who was considered by Bien Erlang to be generous and considerate of the people below, was standing upstairs with Wuxian Chen with satisfaction and looked down, not bad, not bad. When our Xiangjize becomes famous, this area will be the place that those literati long for when the time comes. I will already have a large number of scholars in my hands, and they all have contracts. If we train them well, they will definitely be a good help. He will not let the talents he has worked so hard to train go to other companies. Even if he wants to change jobs, he will have to wait until the place is stable in 10 years. Of course, if they wanted to take the imperial examination, he would not only not oppose it, but would support it with both hands and feet. These were already made connections, so he pushed it out because he was stupid. Next, you can produce fragrant pancreas, then do promotion and marketing, and then find some advertising words that make people feel high-spirited when they hear it. It is certain that Zionji will make money, but Ji Chang's purpose has never been to make money, but to boost the tourism industry in Kawiliu County, increase the income of local residents, and stimulate the local economy. Although he doesn't have any money yet, Ji Chang's is already planning to build a tourist city here. Look, there are trees, flowers, and water. When the building is built, a commercial street will be built. People will stand on the upper floors and look at the sea of flowers below. On the other side is the bustling market. It will be very artistic. Because he had the reputation of running a factory, no one thought it was strange that he bought all this land. It was remote and the people would not be disturbed when the factory was processing, and it was surrounded by yuanhua. They bought the land, these yuan trees are naturally theirs, and they can pick them as they please. Of course, the main reason for buying here is that it's cheap. Wuxian Cheng still had some sense, and did not rejoice along with Ji Chang's. Instead, he said, the weeping willows are in a remote area, and although the flowers are beautiful, they may not attract people to come here to see them. The reason they didn't come before was because Yuanhua is beautiful but has no reputation. That may not be the case in the future. Ji Chang's is very sure of this. Yuanhua is a specialty of weeping willows. When the flowers are in bloom, they are not only beautiful but also very fragrant. But in a poor place like weeping willows, no one will look at the flowers when they don't have enough to eat. Even if there are local people who like to see them, you can see them when you want to see them. That's it for a tree. At this time, there is no way to preserve the flowers, and the fragrance cannot be retained. Even if an outsider hears the weeping willow man say, Yuanhua is beautiful, Yuanhua has a delicate fragrance, but has not seen or smelled it with his own eyes, he will not take it seriously. All said and done, Yuanhua is good looking, but not famous. Whether it is modern or ancient times, if something wants to become popular, fame is definitely a necessary condition. Wu Xiancheng may not be ignorant of this truth, but he just doesn't understand how the county master can be so sure that Yuanhua can become famous. After the first batch of Yuanhua Xiangpan was made, Wu Xiancheng finally understood. This fragrant pancreas actually has a piece of Yuanhua petal sealed in it in some way. From the outside, whether you look up, down, left, or right, the petals are clear and as fresh as ever. When I got closer and smelled it, it turned out to be the fragrance of Yuanhua flowers. Seeing the surprised look on Wuxian Cheng's face, Ji Chang said it was more than that. He waved to his subordinates to fetch water and signaled Wuxian Cheng to wash his hands with Yuanhua Xiangpan. When you're done washing, raise your eyebrows and let him smell the washed hands. Wuxian Cheng sniffed hesitantly, his face even more astonished. This actually really leaves a fragrance. Nowadays, it is fashionable for people, whether they are men or women, to have fragrance on their bodies. For men to have fragrance, it is called scholarly fashion, not to mention for women to have fragrance. How could a pancake that can retain its fragrance not be sold? Not only will it be sold, it will be a big hit. What he expected was good. After batches of pancakes were made, they were immediately shipped to various parties by Mr. Zheng, who said, I just wanted to throw money away, but I didn't expect the other party to throw gold back. Even if the money given to Ji Chang's was deducted, it was still made a lot of money. In just a few months, his reputation even spread to the capital. Mr. Zhen knows very well that rare things are more valuable. Although the price may not be very outrageous, the quantity is very tight. Yuanhua pancreas is a good thing and it is so rare. As expected, the capital quickly rushes to buy it, and young families from all over the country rush to buy it. All the husbands, wives, and girls take it as a capital to show off. Mrs. Wei went to attend a flower viewing banquet today and met several ladies who had used Yuanhua pancreas. There was indeed a faint fragrance on their bodies. For women, such a fragrance-lasting effect is simply irresistible. Mrs. Wei was envious in her heart, but she didn't mention it to anyone when she returned to her home. The quantity of Yuanhua pani in the capital was small and the price was high. It would take a lot of effort to buy it. Besides, she is old, so why waste this effort? Although she convinced herself so, how could she not want it in her heart? Mrs. Wei was a little depressed and planned to take a nap for a while, but the people around her suddenly came to report the news full of joy. "Madam, Mother Zhang is back with a gift from my uncle." Mrs. Wei suddenly sat upright regardless of her manners. "Quick, please come in." She has not seen her daughter once since she left the capital, and she has only received one letter from Kuiliu, which was a long way from her. Calculating the date, it was the one she sent when they first arrived in Kuiliu. She said they were living well and everything was fine, but her daughter was getting married far away. How could my mother not think about it? Mother Zhang can tell so much more than Xin, not to mention that Mother Zhang has been with her for many years. The two of them have a master-servant relationship. If anyone hides it from her, Mother Zhang will not hide it from her. She will definitely know the true condition of her daughter. When Mrs. Zhang came in with excitement on her face, Mrs. Wei felt relieved when she saw her face. If Junken was not having a good life, Zhang's mother would definitely not have such an expression. Sure enough, when Mrs. Wei asked about her daughter, Mrs. Zhang replied with a happy and proud face, "Our girl is living a good life. Although my uncle is busy with work, he is very considerate to the girl. Whenever he returns home, he is with her in the study, we sometimes wander around the county together. If the girl goes to a banquet, as long as my uncle is there, he will pick her up personally. The ladies and girls in Kuiliu County are all envious of our girl." Even though she had expected it, Mrs. Wei still breathed a sigh of relief and recited the Buddha's name, Amitabha, God, and Buddha bless me. I'll just be considerate. She was relieved to know that her daughter was doing well. When she knew that the marriage could not be changed, she was worried that her uncle's official position was low, but he was worried about his bad temper. Ever since her daughter got married, the host's family had always laughed at her, saying that the girl who had been raised in a noble family would not be able to get a royal title in the future for marrying a mere 8th-grade merchant. Mrs. Wei is not sad about this. What she fears most is not that her uncle Guanxiao's family is a merchant and does not have much money, but that her uncle treats her daughter badly. She has seen too many things about married girls having a hard time, especially the two of them. She went to Weeping Willow not long after her wedding. The distance was too far and she couldn't support her daughter even if she wanted to. She felt relieved knowing that the couple had a harmonious relationship. If you are poor, you will be poorer, and if your official position is small, you will be small. As long as the two of them are doing well, that's better than anything else. She thought that Kuiliu was so poor and her uncle's family didn't have much money. She was afraid that the young couple would have to rely on their daughter's dowry to survive. The more she thought about it, the more distressed she became. She said to Zhang's mother, "My uncle is also thinking about me. I am like this, I also want to take something with them, but I'll have to make a hard trip for you when I go back. By the way, Zyok, go to the cashier to pay and buy a few boxes of Yuanhua pancreas." She gave the order and then said to Zhang's mother, "This Yuanhua pancreas stores Yuanhua, and its fragrance will linger for a long time. It has just become popular in the capital. Bring it back to Junken for use." Mrs. Wei also knew that Yuanhua pancreas was said to be made from the Yuanhua of the weeping willow tree. However, Yuanhua pancreas was expensive and her daughter must have been reluctant to buy it. She doesn't need it herself, but she is willing to give it to her daughter. She is young and dresses up more, and her uncle will like it more. If her uncle likes it, the relationship between husband and wife will naturally be better. The more she thought about it, the more beautiful it became, but Mother Zhang over there smiled and said, "Madam, you don't need to ask anyone to buy it. This Yuanhua pancake was made by our uncle. You can get as much as you want from me. The gift I gave you this time is, there are 2 boxes of Yuanhua pancreas." Mrs. Wei's eyes widened slightly, and she almost thought there was something wrong with her ears. This rare and expensive Yuanhua pancake was actually made by her son-in-law. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 103. Mrs. Wei felt that this was a bit unbelievable, but she still stood in front of the 2 big boxes of Yuanhua pancreas, sniffing the fragrance of Yuanhua pancreas, and in front of her eyes were the fragrant pancreas and flowers that were almost praised to the sky by the capital. How could this Yuanhua pancake be made by my uncle? Mrs. Wei had just asked this question when she suddenly came to her senses and asked hurriedly, could it be that my uncle used his status as the county magistrate to get involved with this Yuan seller? People who are crazy. This is not possible. Although most Anglo officials have their own shops, they are still their own. It is not that officials have robbed merchants of their business before. Later, the official's family was exiled. Mother Zhang had been with Mrs. Wei for so long. She frowned and knew what she was thinking. She immediately dismissed Mrs. Wei's worries with a smile. That's not what Madam thought. The recipe for Yuanhua pan is our uncle's. He came up with the idea that he made Yuanhua pancreas in order to allow the people of Weeping Willow to earn more money. The merchant selling Yuanhua pancreas was the Zheng family. When my uncle wanted to make Yuanhua pancreas but had no capital, it was the Zheng family. Seeing that my uncle was worried about the people, he took the initiative to bear the cost of making Yuanhua pancreas. She watched Mrs. Wei's face gradually calm down and continued to comfort her. Our uncle reciprocated the favor and allowed the Zheng family to start the Yuanhua pancreas business. Everyone in Weeping Willow knows about this. Knowing that her uncle had not done anything like occupying other people's property, Mrs. Wei felt more at ease. But looking at the 2 large boxes of Yuanhua pancreas in front of her, she still felt as if she was in a dream. Many ladies and girls in the capital couldn't buy Yuanhua pancreatic juice for money, but her son-in-law actually sent 2 large boxes to their family. Mother Zhang, come with me to the house and talk to me about my uncle's affairs since he took office. This lecture lasted 1 night. It started when their uncle held a banquet for merchants shortly after taking office and persuaded them to spend money for road construction. When the old slave knew this, he thought wrongly. The girl was also very worried for 2 days. After that, the merchants rushed to send money to the county government. The girl was so afraid that she couldn't sleep well all night. But my uncle saw it and laughed. Our girl told the truth after talking to her. Weeping Willow is poor. On the one hand, it's because the land is too barren and nothing can grow well. On the other hand, Weeping Willow is remote and few outsiders come here. What kind of tourist city does the master want to build to attract outsiders to come here? To make Weeping Willow rich, those merchants also wanted to contribute to Weeping Willow, so they rushed to give money. It's just that at the time, she didn't understand why when her uncle went out and said he wouldn't charge money, all the merchants had a look of fear on their faces, as if it was something terrible for her uncle not to charge money. There were even merchants who knelt on the ground and begged their uncle to take the money, shouting that the Weeping Willow belonged to their family and he wanted to build a home, so he begged his uncle to accept the money. At that time, my uncle was helpless and said he would not accept the money. However, those merchants begged and said they wanted to contribute to Weeping Willow. There was no other way, so he had no choice but to accept it. Madam, don't worry, even though our uncle accepted the money, he will be able to do it that day. A monument was erected, and it was clearly engraved on it which family gave how much silver, but I didn't get a penny. Mrs. Wei sighed after hearing this. Although Weeping Willow is poor, the local wealthy households are kind and righteous. I have never heard of a wealthy household begging for money to go out. No, according to the old slave, the wealthy people must have also seen that our uncle is upright, so they trust our uncle. When the old slave left, the road with Weeping Willows was already under construction. Walking on the street, the people are all boasting about our uncle, saying that he is a truly good official, and the old slave is really happy for his daughter. Mrs. Wei nodded. In this way, if it spreads, it will be regarded as a good story for a generation. At this point, her eyes suddenly lit up, she sat up straight, and quickly got up. Now that my uncle has given me such a good gift, we can't use it all in our house. Please dress me up quickly. I want to go there myself. Select some of these yuanhua pancakes and give them to people you have good relationships with. Her uncle and the local wealthy family, one is upright and devoted to the people, the other insists on providing money for the people. How could she not tell her uncle about something that made people want to admire it as soon as they heard it? When the reputation is out and the 3-year period is over, the possibility of her uncle returning to the capital will be higher. Even if he doesn't come back, people will know that her uncle is a good person, and he is gentle and considerate to their Junkan, and he can always fight well. A dozen of those who were gloating about their misfortune felt that her Junkan was the face of someone who had fallen from the clouds. Over there in Kawiliu County, Ji Chang's, who was wondering whether the roads were almost built and the tourist city was mostly built, should be promoted well, didn't know yet. His mother-in-law was already helping him with various tasks without any teacher. Promoted. Grown-ups. I was just thinking about whether to make a travel brochure when Wu Xiancheng arrived. Now that the muddy road with Weeping Willow had been paved with cement, Ji Chang's was very familiar with making this thing, and he succeeded after just a few trials. In addition, the tourism city is being built, and there are small shopping streets and large shopping streets that have been established. Now Weeping Willow has changed its gun. Even if it is only a new one, it is no longer what it was before. As the county magistrate of Weeping Willow County, Wuxian County Magistrate is naturally different from the poor person he was before. When Weeping Lu was poor, Wuxian Cheng had no idea of dressing up. As a man, what could he do if he wanted to look so good? Anyway, he was married and had children, so he didn't need to dress as freshly and refreshingly as he did when he was a boy to attract women. But things are different now. Weeping Willows are now paving roads everywhere, and the roads are very clean and tidy. There are government officials patrolling everywhere, and no one is allowed to urinate, spit, or throw garbage. There are designated places for throwing away garbage, and there are also places that adults call public toilets. This place does not charge money, but the requirement for people who go there is that they are not allowed to dirty the inside. There are people specially hired by the court to guard the door. Men's public restrooms are like a big man, and women's public restrooms are like a big lady. Although the work of these two people is quite easy, their monthly salary is a full 1.5 yuan. They are almost catching up with those who work in the pancake factory. It is precisely because of this that many people want this job. After grabbing the head, the person who grabbed it was naturally conscientious and did not dare to slack off, for fear that he would lose this good job if he did not do it well. The public toilets are not rows of pits, but are divided into small cubicles. Each small cubicle is locked. If someone wants to enter, he must get the small cubicle sign from the uncle or aunt. Number plate key. If someone wants to come out from inside, the key must be returned to the uncle and aunt. At this time, the uncle and aunt will go in and check it carefully. If they find that someone has soiled the inside, they will directly tell them to take it to the yamen, unless the other party honestly cleans up the dirty place. Until it's clean. This is not modern times, but ancient times when people were very afraid of the government. No matter how they dared to get dirty, they followed the regulations every time, flushing, washing hands, and not missing a single step. Yes, wash your hands. Jidaji County specially built a water tower to let people develop the good habit of washing hands after convenience. Under the two mountains of power and free, the people of Weeping Willow have gradually become accustomed to taking garbage to the trash can instead of littering on the ground. If it is more convenient, they do not just go to the ground or find a bush, but go to the nearby trash can. Public restrooms are convenient for flushing and washing hands after use. They gradually got used to washing their hands after using the toilet and felt that it was much cleaner this way. Ji Chang sent people to build a bathhouse again, and he also did not charge money for the people to wash up for free. Of course, you are not forced to take a bath, but if there are those who want to do business in the shopping streets, there will be guards at the gates of the shopping streets. If you smell a bad smell on your body, you are not allowed to enter. No matter you are selling or buying things, if you are told not to enter, you will not be allowed to enter. Although it seems that these two places cost money, it is really a drop in the bucket compared to the money Yuan Huai earns. Moreover, he has stall fees in his hand every day. The small shopping street mainly sells daily necessities, and the stalls are all set up by the yamen. They only charge 1 penny a day, and ordinary people usually go in. The big shopping street sells more expensive things, such as gold and silver jewelry, jade bracelets, etc. Gorgeous clothes and carriages are all sold here, and the stall fees here are much more expensive. Anyway, the bathhouse is free, so why bother to take a bath? Not everyone is the kind of person who just wants to kill someone if he takes a bath. Even if he is, can he still waste money to buy things because he doesn't take a bath? Whether it is voluntarily or because of orders issued by Ji Changs, in short, everyone walking on the street today is clean and refreshed. Road construction, pancake factories, construction of large and small shopping streets, and construction of tourist cities all require manpower. Ji Changs always recruits people according to the suitable salary that he carefully calculated. After this, as long as they are the kind who are willing to work hard, the family's life will not be much different. My hands are not as short of money as before, and my body is so clean. It is so awkward to wear those shabby clothes. First, those with money wear new clothes, and then those who can squeeze in new clothes. Later, all the people wear new clothes. Basically, everyone on the street has a new set of clothes. Even if it's not new, it's still clean and not dirty at all. After all, in the past, everyone didn't have money to take a bath in a bathhouse or buy new clothes. It was like this. It didn't matter if they didn't take a shower or wear new clothes. But nowadays, most people are clean and wearing brand new clothes. At this time, those who don't take a shower or wear new clothes are len. Even if your family is in a special situation and really has no money, it is not difficult to take a free bath and wash your clothes. Everyone is like this. As the Prime Minister of Kawiliu County, the Prime Minister of Wu County naturally has to clean up his old skin, put on his wife's new clothes, and come to work in the county government cleanly. Not to mention, he didn't feel dirty before, but now he is fresh, and he is wearing brand new clothes. He pays more attention to the cleanliness of his body than before, and is extra careful when going to the toilet for fear of getting his own clothes dirty. With new clothes, I wash my hands much more carefully than before. Even when Mr. G left him to work overtime, he felt a little more serious and upright than before. Wearing new clothes, I feel that I am not working overtime, but doing something for the people. Ji Changs looked at Wuxian Cheng, who was full of energy and didn't know why he was so happy, and smiled. Wuxian has been in good spirits recently. Wu County Prime Minister immediately connected to the flattering line and took the photo immediately. This is also thanks to Your Excellency. Since Your Excellency took office, there have been few lawbreakers in Weeping Willow. The people live and work in peace and contentment and do not pick up things on the road. The lower officials also feel sorry for them when people are happy, their spirits are naturally good. Ji Chang's nodded. Wuxian really cares about the people. I saw you right. Wuxian wanted to lift his back to the sky, with pride written all over his eyes. Your Excellency, you are so complimentary. Yes, he is such a person who cares about the people. He. Ji Chang's picked up another piece of white paper from the desk and pushed it in front of Wuxian. Under his puzzled gaze, he said deeply, now, you have passed my second round of tests. Wuxian. What about the second round? Sir, you didn't say anything about it in the first round before, right? But considering that the gentleman in front of me plans to bring down the local rich families as soon as he takes office, since there can be a first round of tests, the existence of a second round is naturally reasonable. He quickly held his breath, bent down nervously, and whispered, don't worry, sir, I'm on your side. If you have any arrangements, just give me your orders. Ji Chang's pushed the piece of paper in front of him again. I will write you the general plan of the tourist city in a minute. You should follow the plan I gave you and write a welcome brochure for the tourist city of no less than 10 articles. Be sure to we will comprehensively introduce the cultural features and facilities of our Weeping Willow, and we will implement the plan of launching a tourist city to increase the opportunities for local people to make money. Wuxian, 10 chapters, isn't that a bit too much, sir? Ji Chang's looked at him with a look that said, how can you not even endure this little hardship? I don't ask you to write it yourself. I will draw a range for you. You just need to follow what I give you. Just extend it, it's very simple. Wuxian. Ji Chang stretched out his hand and held his hand eagerly. His eyes were filled with sincerity. Wuxian, in our county government, you and I are the only ones who are of the same mind. This kind of event is enough to completely change our Kawiliu County. I can only believe you. Wuxian felt a pulse of hot air from Rendu Er to Tianlinggai. He immediately raised his chest, raised his head and tightened his abdomen. Yes. Sir, don't worry. I will do a good job, sir. Seeing that I have to fight, I have to work hard, I can do it, written all over his face. Ji Chang's leaned back in his chair with peace of mind, picked up the teacup and took a sip. Wuxian is so enthusiastic, I am so enthusiastic I feel more at ease. After seeing off Wuxian, he picked up the cakes on the table and took a bite, then took a sip of tea, put the account book on the table, and after finishing the cakes, he shouted outside, call Chief Liang to come here. The chief registrar came soon. Ji Chang's handed the account book to him, and held his hand under his slightly embarrassed gaze, saying sincerely, in our county government, only Mr. and I are of the same mind. This box of account books is our Weeping Willow. Besides, sir, who else can I trust? The chief clerk was surprised and proud. His presence in the county government has always been very low. From the time he took office until now, he has only taken Wuxian to play with him. He did not expect that he would be so important in the hearts of the county magistrate. Even though he was dizzy due to the rationality of this box of accounts, and it was not his responsibility at all, he still did it. After seeing off the smug chief clerk, Ji Chang's wrote on his notepad, give the chief clerk a salary increase and a bonus, and sat back leisurely. After cracking melon seeds for a while, someone outside reported, sir, the king is here. Ji Chang's immediately picked up a book and covered the melon seed skin, and sat firmly. When he saw Wang Cap to come in, he immediately stood up to greet him and held his hand very enthusiastically. Wang Cap, in this county government, You and I are the only ones who are of the same mind, comma. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Mao. Chapter 104. With his superb acting skills, Ji Chang successfully left all the things he should have done to his poor subordinates in one morning. He didn't mean to trick him. Strictly speaking, these matters were not within the county government's jurisdiction. They were all brought in by Ji Chang's from outside. If he just asked his subordinates to do the work for him, and the superior had to do the work that he didn't have to do himself, most people would still not be happy even if the salary was increased. Especially since they are civil servants. Except for the poor man Wu Xianchang, the others are actually not very greedy for money. Of course, they won't refuse the money. Look how good it is now, just say a few words, Ji Chang's has people doing his errands for him, he is happy, and those who do errands for him feel that they are the confidants of the county magistrate, and they are also happy. And he didn't lie. In his heart, these subordinates were indeed of the same mind as him, and he indeed trusted them. After all, those who were not of the same mind as him have been removed in the past few days. Nowadays, everyone is happy, and nothing is perfect without saying a word. Mr. G, who had nothing to do and was light-hearted, went to look at the small vegetable garden he had placed in the inner office while eating melon seeds. Water the water, watch others fertilize, put a lounge chair under the sun, drink the juice squeezed by others, and eat the snacks newly made in the kitchen. Ji Chang's, who was sunbathing, lamented that he had been so tired recently and needed to take a good rest. Over there, the chief bookkeeper was busy calculating the extra accounts incurred by Kawiliu County because of their county magistrate. When he got to the most difficult part of the calculation, he wanted to catch Ji Chang's and yell at him to ask him why he had so many side jobs. Forget about Yuan Hui, after all, Yuan Hui has its own accounting office, and he only needs to coordinate the money that Yuan Hui has to support the county government. But let's look at what other good things their Jiji County has done. Small and large shopping streets have to collect fees every day, so forget it. After all, the money will be counted as income of the yamen, and it is also considered as what he originally wanted to do. Forget it, build an orphanage and nursing home. After all, it is a good deed, and the tourist city can do it too. It makes sense that in the end it is to attract outsiders to come to Weeping Willows to boost the economy. What the hell are these how to eat delicious experimental seafood? Will raising cats and dogs increase people's happiness, expenses for government protection and the birth of big ships? He took a deep breath and waited until he saw a ledger that said estimated expenditures for county government personnel this year. He opened it and turned to the page he saw. It clearly stated that Chief Liang's salary had been increased to 1 tael. When there were boxing benefits later, the anger miraculously disappeared. The chief clerk's salary is fixed, and if Mr. G pays more, he must pay it out of his own pocket. Such a good Shang Guan regards him as one of his own wholeheartedly, how can he bear not to share the burden for Shang Guan? Over there, Wu Xiancheng trapped himself in his study every day and gritted his teeth writing travel guide, top 10 tourist attractions in Kawiliu County, on the origin of Yuanhua, the role of large and small shopping streets in Kawiliu County, etc. Wait a minute, while gritting his teeth, he admired Master G for being so talented in literature. If it were him, he couldn't even think of someone who could write an article like this. Wang Kaptu took his subordinates to intensify their inspections. After the inspection, they went to a place with no one nearby to train their subordinates according to the methods given by the magistrate. Last time, the magistrate actually found someone to make new clothes for them, and also made them new clothes. Protective clothing that can protect important parts of the body was specially made for them. Usually, the policemen only look impressive in front of the people, but in fact they are nothing in front of Shang Guan. Wang Putu has been in the county government for more than 10 years and has sent away several adults. This is the first time that an adult has taken the initiative to give him a favor. They upgrade their protection. This was the first time that an adult regarded him as the most trusted person in the county government. In the past, most of the county magistrates were best friends with the county magistrate, and they would not even look at the people under them. Now that he had such a rare opportunity to show his face in front of the magistrate, how could he not take advantage of it? With a serious look on his face, he walked past a row of police officers who were standing upright. "I have stood firm now. Now the magistrate has said that we must ensure that those who commit petty theft do not dare to take the risk. Sir, not only did they give us clothes and bonuses, but they also bought pork and mutton dishes and sent them to our homes. We have to be able to show your concern. If anyone dares to be lazy and can't keep up with the training, get out of here as soon as possible. Don't think that you won't be afraid if you haven't seen it personally. Your Majesty told me personally that all the arrests below are the sole responsibility of this chief. Whoever steals you are a treacherous person. Even if I just kick you out of the county government, you will only praise me for doing a good job." Wang Baotu has been in the county government for more than 10 years. This is the first time he has been so majestic, and he feels extremely happy in his heart. The detectives who were standing upright also hurriedly stood upright following his words. If they had lost their position as agents in the past, they would have felt disappointed and not too uncomfortable, but it was different now. Since Mr. G took office, the treatment of these agents has been better than before. Their monthly income has increased, and they also have new clothes and new boots. Even the official sword, although the sword has not been replaced, was carefully polished by Yuki-sama outside. He even hired someone to boil sweet water and make cakes and put them in front of the county government office. Although the reasons given were these: anyone who is a public employee of the county government can eat and drink tianshui pastry, but in the entire county government, they are the only ones who have the most access to the gates of the police officers who are going out to patrol the streets. Isn't it placed at the door just for them? Not to mention the clothes specially designed to protect them, and the boxing gifts that are enough for the family to eat for a month. Of course, a month is calculated based on very frugal. The most important thing is that wherever they and their families go, people will look at them with envy. It was Ji Chang's who did it. Didn't he build some bathhouses in Weeping Willow? There are 2 bathhouses, which are specially used by county government officials and their families. Immediate relatives, such as mothers, fathers, children, brothers, and sisters, can enter as long as they live together. It's a privilege, but this bathhouse was built by the county magistrate himself. He spent his own money to make it convenient for his subordinates, and no one could say anything. For the police officers, this benefit was really touching. Those civilian employees were already respected, but the police officers had always been in a miserable situation. The monthly salary is not as much as that of a civil servant, but the work is more tiring than that of a civil servant. I have to work hard every day without touching the ground. The common people are afraid of themselves because they have to deal with danger every day. Even better off families are not willing to give away girls. Get married. But it's different now. The relatives of the government officials are also counted as family members by Mr. G. The family members go to the special bathhouse, so they can still save their face. Not only the bathhouses, but also the family members of county government officials go to small shopping streets to set up stalls for free. Although they only have a penny, who wouldn't be happy? There are also the people who built the fragrant pancreas factory, built roads, and built public toilets before. In orphanages and nursing homes, these good jobs that provide food and accommodation and plenty of money are also given priority to the families of government officials. Several of the wives of the agents are now helping to take care of the children in the orphanage. Not only can they get money back every month, they, the agents, can also work there to make a living. This is also what Ji Chang's allowed. The agents are his subordinates, and he opened the orphanage with money. A few more people to eat is nothing, but it can make these agents who can eat in the orphanage take care of him. Take out the lungs. Moreover, This is ancient times, and the natural class system prevents those who have benefited from it. After all, Ji Chang's has the power to kill them. If any of them takes the benefit and does nothing, you don't have to think about the consequences. Didn't you notice what Ji Chang said recently? Do all the policemen treat them as if they were following the golden rule? Wuxian Cheng has seen all the changes in his subordinates during this period, which further confirmed that Master Ji is good at playing with people's hearts and has deep intentions. Fortunately, in Mr. Ji's heart, they are of the same mind, and he doesn't have to worry about Mr. Ji playing tricks on him. It was also a credit to Ji Chang's that he didn't know what Wuxian Cheng was thinking. If he knew, he would definitely think that Wuxian Cheng was thinking too complicatedly. He has always felt that he doesn't like to figure out people's hearts, but isn't it easy to understand people's hearts? He didn't have to guess or think, he could tell what these people wanted and what those people wanted at a glance. He did these things with the good intention of I don't mind letting you have fun while doing things for me. Well, after all, he is still too kind, and when he asks others to do things for him, he goes out of his way to make them happy. There is no such a good boss as him anywhere else. My good boss Ji Chang still eats and drinks every day, goes shopping with his wife, goes to the tourist city to provide guidance on work, and looks at his vegetable garden. He goes to bed at the same time every day, and can still lie in bed in the morning, living his own leisurely life. In less than a month, I have gained 2 pounds. Finally, 3 subordinates, a county magistrate whose hairline gradually moved upward, a chief clerk who had lost a lot of hair and had 2 big dark circles under his eyes, and another whose chest and biceps had become much stronger, were wearing it every day. The catchers who followed their subordinates either patrolling the streets or exercising, and occasionally visiting a few thieves' dens for hardcore exercises, all announced that they had finished what Mr. Ji asked them to do. Ji Chang's was very satisfied. He used his own money to pay bonuses to them one by one, patting them on the shoulders one by one, his face full of appreciation. Very good. You have done beyond my expectations. The tourist city has been completely completed and we, Weeping Willow, can welcome tourists from out of town. He looked at the subordinate in front of him who was in danger of baldness, the one who had transformed into a national treasure, and the one who was more than a little tanned, with a friendly smile on his face. I originally thought that in this huge county government, I could only trust one person, but now it seems that the 3 of you are my right-hand men. You and I are truly of the same mind. The tired expressions on the faces of the 3 of them were slightly lessened, and they all showed a bit of pride. They looked at each other without any trace, and naturally did not miss the same pride and satisfaction on the faces of the other 2. The 3 of them are all proud and complacent, and they automatically assume that they are the one person among the only one person can be trusted whom the Lord just said. Tisk, look at them, they don't know that the adults have been on the same page with them before, and that they are the first to be trusted by the adults. Even if the adults are of the same mind as them now, my own heart is still the most important. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 105. After Ji Chang's operation, instructing others to do things while watching, Weeping Willow is now able to receive foreign tourists very well. Various tourist attractions are well prepared, and huts specially designed for tourists have been built in rows. Master Zheng, who went to the capital to engage in the Yuanhua pancreas business, came back with a message. As expected, many people in the capital became interested in Yuanhua, and most of them were literati. This is also normal. Although women prefer to use Yuanhua pan, the clearly see-through Yuanhua petals in Yuanhua pan are still more popular among literati. Of course, the comments arranged by Ji Chang's are also indispensable. Yuanhua is beautiful and has its own fragrance, which makes people feel relaxed and happy when smelling it. Anyone who has used Yuanhua knows this. As long as you gently rub Yuanhua in the palm of your hand, the fragrance can stay for a day or even longer. A single petal can have such an effect. If it were a real yuanhua, wouldn't it be even more exciting? Naturally, they don't know that the petals are only for viewing. The reason why yuanhuipan is so fragrant is because Ji Chang's destroyed the flowers with his own hands and used who knows how many petals to extract the fragrance. In short, under Ji Chang's misleading, yuanhua gradually became the new song of praise in the capital. It grows well, has a good fragrance, and is quite loyal. Except for weeping willows, it cannot grow anywhere else. Ji Chang's didn't think it was enough, so he made a draft and asked Wuxian Cheng, who was already bald and losing his hair, to write a legend about the weeping willow. It tells the story of a woman, nicknamed Yuan'er, who was engaged to her fiancé since she was a child. The two were childhood sweethearts and had a deep love for each other. They promised each other a lifetime. When her fiancé went to Beijing to take the exam, Yuan'er made an agreement with him to wait for him when he comes back. However, he was robbed on the way. Killed by bandits, Yuan'er didn't wait for him to return, and refused to believe that he had betrayed his trust and left her behind. She always waited impatiently, supporting his parents and taking care of his younger siblings until his younger siblings grew up and his parents died. She stood at the place agreed upon with her fiancé, looking towards the capital. Yuan'er is getting older. She doesn't want her fiancé to come back and see her haggard face. God appreciates her infatuation and turns her into a tree. Every year in the month of scientific examination, the tree will bloom. She was just waiting for the return of her sweetheart, but when she found out that she couldn't come back, she was so sad that the flowers fell into pieces. After a month, the petals fell all over the ground. Later, my fiancé's brother went to Beijing to take the exam and found his brother's body on the way. He brought it back to Beijing and buried it under the tree transformed by Yuan'er. However, Yuan'er could no longer hear the news of her fiancé's return. She was still like that. When the month of scientific research comes, the flowers will bloom to greet their fiancé with their most beautiful moments. Once the month is over, the lost petals will wither. Later, the villagers felt deeply for Yuan'er and named the tree Yuanshu, asking for the seeds to be scattered everywhere. However, these Yuan trees refused to take root in places other than the weeping willow, and only wanted to stay in the weeping willow, waiting for their fiancé. Go home. Little did she know that her fiancé had been buried under the tree, and grasses grew out of him, guarding her tenderly. What a touching love legend. Although it was made up by Ji Chang's and he couldn't help but ponder it carefully, it is very in line with the current fashion. Ji Chang's knew that Weeping Lu had never had this legend before, but it didn't matter. From this moment on, it was Weeping Liu's love story passed down from generation to generation. And although the story is false, there is still a lot of truth in the content. The flowering time of the Yuan tree is indeed the month of the scientific expedition. The weeping willow has special geology. The Yuan tree that can grow well here will indeed wither if moved to another place. Moreover, the Yuan tree has accompanying grass. This kind of small grass grows on the Yuan tree. Wherever there is a Yuan tree, there is this kind of grass. True phenomena mixed with false stories are enough to make this legend real. Wuxian Cheng, who witnessed the county magistrate making up an outline on the spot and forcing himself to write such a lingering, pathos and touching love story. He also thought the story was quite good. If he hadn't known that there was no such legend about Weeping Willow before, he might have believed it, but the problem was, "Sir, this has never happened to Weeping Willow before. If we do this, no one will believe it." In fact, Wu County Prime Minister wanted to say whether this was too false. It was something that no one mentioned in the past decades. Now, whenever a scholar from the capital comes to weep the willow, the legend of Yuan Shu suddenly pops up. Ji Chang's waved his hand. It doesn't matter, just write it. Believe it or not, it's a legend. Let's just say that the scene where Yuan'er turned into a tree was touching in the legend. But if it were said now that a person turned into a tree, Do you think the people would be afraid and quickly chop them down and burn them? Shouting monster with a frightened face. Wuxian County Magistrate went to work overtime with great pain, but in his heart he still felt that this scheming magistrate who had deceived many people was afraid that he was going to fall over. Legends can only be trusted if they are passed down from generation to generation. There is no saying that one was created by creation. Hey, but yes, even if Master G has superb methods, he is just a young man in the end. No matter how deep he is, how deep can he be? Although he was complaining in his heart, Wuxian Cheng had no guts to obey what his boss told him, so he could only work overtime to create this legend. Ji Chang's got the manuscript, arranged for a few storytellers, gave them some instructions, and then let them go. On the third day, Wuxian Cheng was captured as a young man and accompanied the magistrate to inspect the large and small shopping streets. When I went to the big shopping street, there was nothing. When I went to the small shopping street, the Wuxian Prime Minister's jaw almost dropped to the floor. Most of the people selling goods on the small shopping street are ordinary small traders or ordinary people who sell vegetables. This place has been strictly managed since it was developed by the county government. Although everything is sold on the ground, it is not dirty. Damn, after this place was built, the Wuxian Cheng family also liked coming here to buy food. He had been here a few times, so he naturally knew what was sold here. But look at now. Huan Chaos, you sell Huan Chaos. My family has been selling chaos from generation to generation. When Miss Yuan ate it at my house, she said it was delicious. Wuxian Cheng. Shit, he comes to eat chaos at this restaurant every day. Didn't the old man who sells chaos say before that he learned the art of making chaos from the county next door? Good jewelry, girl, let's take a look at the jewelry. Look at how beautiful this bracelet is. This is Miss Yuan's favorite style. Wu Xiancheng looked at the table the stall owner was holding, and his eyebrows skipped a beat. He had just bought this bracelet the day before yesterday. Didn't the stall owner say it was a new style? Look at the other side. The umbrella seller said that the umbrella was engraved with Yuan flowers, which symbolized loyal love. The sachet seller said that the embroidery on the sachet was embroidered by Yuan for her fiancé. There is another person over there, selling a ring passed down by his grandfather and belonging to Miss Yuan. Wuxian Cheng. He hasn't been here for only 3 days. Have these people been brainwashed? Wuxian Cheng turned his head and looked at Ji Chang's, who smiled at him. It seems that Miss Yuan has left a lot of footprints in our Kawiliu County. Wuxian Cheng. He always felt as if Master Ji was laughing at him. He coughed dryly. These are all arranged by adults. But isn't it bad for someone who deceived us like this? If it was revealed that they were fake legends, they would definitely be ridiculed. Ji Chang's made an invitation to him. You can try it and see if they will admit that these are all fake. Wuxian Cheng went there dubiously. He walked up to the stall owner selling rings, picked up the ring and looked at it. Seeing him like this, the stall owner thought he wanted to buy it, so he immediately smiled on his face. Master, this ring was worn by Miss Yuan, or the one I passed was the infatuated woman who was waiting for Lu Lang to transform into Yuanshu. This is a good thing. You are really knowledgeable. Wuxian Cheng, you look very ordinary. Miss Yuan's family is not well off. Only ordinary means this is her ring. I'm afraid you don't know that in order to support Lu Lang's family, Miss Yuan pawned the hairpin that Lu Lang gave her. How can she have the money to buy good jewelry, don't you think? Wuxian Cheng. This statement indeed makes sense and is very logical. If he hadn't written the plot of Yuan Niang sells the gold hairpin in tears, he would really believe it. Ji Chang stood there with his arms folded, watching as Wuxian Cheng struggled for a long time before questioning the authenticity of Miss Yuan, and then was pushed back angrily by the stall owner. What do you mean Miss Yuan doesn't exist? My grandfather's grandfather saw her with his own eyes. My grandfather told me personally that Miss Yuenner is really stunning, gentle, and kind. My grandfather's grandfather also got this ring. The food was exchanged for her. Are you going to buy something? If you don't, move away quickly. Don't block me from selling things. Wuxian Cheng came back with a confused look on his face. Ji Chang's wanted to laugh, but he held it back and raised his eyebrows at his unlucky county magistrate. How? The unlucky county magistrate was still confused. How could it be possible? This Yuenner is clearly a fictional person created by the adults. Why do they swear so confidently? That's naturally because I make money selling peripherals. As long as you borrow a name, you can turn an ordinary thing into a good thing with its own reputation. Moreover, this kind of myth and legend seems to be from a long time ago, and the person involved is unlikely to come out to ask them for the right to the image. Such a good thing, who would be willing not to do it? Ji Chang's only needs to arrange a few people to spread the story in the early stage. Later, there will naturally be people with the name Miss Yuenner XXX to maintain the authenticity of this myth. He patted the shoulder of Chen Wuxian, who was obviously the original author but was criticized by derivative fans as you know shit. It's really okay now. Let's go back and have a good rest for a few days. The first batch of tourists in the capital have already embarked on their journey. Among a group of literati who wanted to see the legendary Yuanhua falling all over the ground, there was a young man who was not very interested in poetry. It is Wei Junkin's younger brother Wei Junli. He is not very old, he is only 16 this year, but he is already old enough to get married in Angguo. This time Ji Chang's, the son-in-law, sent someone to give a gift, and the Wei family naturally wanted to return the gift. Wei Junli so he volunteered to go to Weeping Willow to give gifts. On the one hand, I miss my sister and want to see it with my own eyes. On the other hand, I have heard about the beauty of Yuanhua and am eager to see it in person. Naturally, the reason given to his parents was that he was about to take the scientific examination, and now he only had the reputation of being a scholar. His brother-in-law was a serious scholar who had passed the examination, so he might as well ask his brother-in-law to give him some advice. Although the Wei family couple knew that he was just making excuses, they also missed their daughter. Since they couldn't see her in person, it would be good to let their son go and see her instead, so they agreed. Wei Junli was a cheerful man. Seeing that this group of literati were going to Weeping Willow to see Yuanhua, he went with them. They were all about the same age. They laughed and chatted with them along the way, which was very pleasant. He didn't deliberately say that he was the brother-in-law of the magistrate of Kawiliu County. Most of these literati just went to Yuanhua and didn't ask much about it. The group of people quickly became brothers. When he first knew that his brother-in-law was going to take his sister to Kawiliu to take office, Wei Junli also checked the county records of Kawiliu, so he knew the style of Kawiliu very well and knew that this was a really poor place. When they were about to arrive, they saw that it was raining. Wei Junli reminded them in a friendly way, I heard that it rains a lot in Weeping Willow Lanhai, so there is a lot of mud on the ground. You can ask your servants to find an inn first, so that the dirty boots will not be difficult to clean and replace. If you go out to play, you will definitely not be able to bring too much with you. Everyone else thanked him for the reminder and said, Brother Wei is so considerate that he understands the scene of the Weeping Willow so well. Wei Junli was a little arrogant in his heart, but he waved his hands quite humbly, it's nothing, it's just that I have relatives here at home, so I care a little more about Weeping Willow. It was his first time to show off like this on a long trip, and his words were a little light-hearted. We are all here together. If you have any difficulties in Weeping Willow in the future, just come and find Mr. Wei. Although Mr. Wei is not as talented as you in literary talent, he must know something about Weeping Willow. Hey, pretending to be cool and cool, it feels so comfortable. Wei Junli, who had previously been restricted by his family and could only study honestly, showed off for a rare moment and felt comfortable all over. After speaking, he did not put down the curtain and sit back, but continued to look outside. The carriage entered the city with Weeping Willow written on it, and then walked smoothly on the cement road. Drainage holes have been built underneath, and the rainwater on the road flows underground. The road is clean and only slightly wet. Pedestrians walking on top of it don't even get the slightest bit wet on their shoes holding umbrellas. The coachman stopped the carriage and asked everyone in the car, "Would you like to come down and take a walk?" The scenery is the best on a rainy day with weeping willows. Behind him were pedestrians walking leisurely on the concrete road in the misty rain, holding bamboo umbrellas. A gentleman asked what this road was about, and the driver smiled and replied that it was built by the newly appointed magistrate. In the past, everyone would hide at home when it rained, but now that the road is repaired, it does not prevent everyone from coming out in rainy days. Although no one is looking at him, Wei Junli always feels that all eyes are on him. "Brother-in-law, you didn't say that in addition to being a yuan hu a pancake, you also built roads." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 106. Wei Junli felt very embarrassed that he didn't even know that his brother-in-law was building roads, but he still told fellow scholars about the situation so confidently. But soon, when he saw Ji Chang's who came out to greet him with his men, he felt so embarrassed. The embarrassment was suddenly thrown away from thousands of miles away. He opened the curtain and got out of the carriage, took the bamboo umbrella handed by the coachman, and greeted it happily, "Brother-in-law, how did you know that I was coming?" Next to him, Wuxian Cheng was a little confused when he saw such a familiar young man approaching him, but he suddenly realized it when he heard him call him brother-in-law. "I heard that the magistrate's wife has a biological brother in her family, so it seems that this is him." He looked up and down quietly, and his eyes lit up slightly. He was worthy of being the son of the Cheng family in Yushi. He looked like a gentleman. Although he was young, he had an elegant demeanor. His appearance was not comparable to that of Lord Ji, but he was still handsome and vaguely handsome. You can see the similarity with the magistrate's wife from her eyebrows. Such a good-looking young man makes people feel happy just looking at him. A smile immediately appeared on his face, and he was about to explain to Lord Ji that their group was not here to greet Mr. Wei, but they heard that the first batch of people who came to Weeping Willow for sightseeing had arrived, so the Lord took them to pick him up. One by one, let these literati who are good at writing travel notes comfortably enjoy eating and drinking in Weeping Willow. When they return to Beijing, we can promote a group of people to come. Previously, Wuxian Cheng felt that it was a bit cheap for them to come out to greet these literati who were not officials. Mr. Ji also said that although it seemed a bit cheap for his parents to come out to receive them, Mr. Ji was not old, so it didn't matter. On the contrary, it will make these literati feel that they are valued. When Wuxian Cheng opened his mouth, Ji Changs knew what he was going to say. He spoke directly before Wu County Cheng, and smiled at Wei Junli, "There are government officials I sent to patrol all around Weeping Willow. Knowing that you are coming, can my brother-in-law not come out to greet you?" After finishing speaking, Ji Chang's face naturally showed a bit of surprise. He looked at the gentlemen who were getting off the carriage one after another, and asked in confusion and innocence, "Are these gentlemen coming with you?" Next to him, Wuxian Cheng. It's true that there were government officials arranged to go out on patrol around Weeping Willow, but what those government officials announced was that these men were coming. Now Mr. Ji looks as if he really doesn't know the identity of these scholars, but he is very sincere. He couldn't help but recall the corrupt official behavior that Master Ji acted when he first came to Weeping Willow. Every cell in his body was filled with greed for money, and he was even more corrupt than a real corrupt official. He couldn't blame him for actually believing that Mr. G was a corrupt official at that time, and he almost failed the first level of the test. Over there, the gentleman who got off the carriage heard that the person greeting Wei Junli was actually the local magistrate, and they quickly stepped forward to salute. Ji Chang smiled with a good attitude and said gently, "You are welcome." Jun Li said that you came to Weeping Willow to see Yuan Hua. Since you are Jun Li's friend, I will definitely take good care of you, Wuxian Cheng. Wuxian Cheng, who was still lost in memories next to him, heard his boss calling him and hurried forward. "Sir, we are guests from afar. You can send these talented people to the inn next to Yuanhua Forest in person. You don't have to pay for the room." Some literati quickly refused, saying that they had brought enough silver, so how could they stay in an inn without paying? Ji Chang's waved his hand. "That inn was built by me, and no one has lived there yet. It is just for the convenience of viewing Yuanhua. You don't need to be polite to me. Junli is my brother-in-law and his friend. Naturally, I am take good care of it." Next to him, Wuxian Cheng. Mr. G had previously said that the first group of tourists would be given free in so that they could go back and praise Weeping Lu and local officials like them. But now it was because these people were friends of his wife's brother. He was full of complaints, but others didn't know the inside story. Seeing Ji Chang's being so enthusiastic and considerate, he couldn't help but feel a little better in his heart. He is so kind to his wife and brother, and even they are loved by everyone. This Master Ji is really friendly and gentle to others. A husband who had a good chat with Wei Junli on the road was still a little shocked. When he saw Ji Chang's talking to others with a smile, he quickly pulled Wei Junli over and asked, "Brother Wei, why didn't you say that Magistrate Coelho is your brother-in-law before?" Wei Junli's previous embarrassment had long since been thrown to the sky, and now he only felt full of complacency and pride in his heart. Can you not be proud? He was only 16 years old, which was the time when he needed face the most and liked to show off. Now that Ji Chang's, his brother-in-law, had come to receive the people who were traveling with him, he had given him enough face, so naturally he felt happy. Behind him were his brother-in-law's thoughtful words. Wei Junli's waist was straighter than before, and he said to the young man who was talking to him, "You are coming to Weeping Willow to see Yuanhua. I'm telling you what to do." Over there, Ji Chang's had a good attitude and successfully persuaded these literati to live over there in Yuanhua Forest by saying, "You are all my brother-in-law's friends. Of course I have to take good care of you." He looked at these young men with a smile. Talk with a relaxed expression. Next to him, Wuxian Chen waited for a long time and finally found the opportunity to ask him, "Sir, didn't you say before that we came here specially to wait for these gentlemen who are looking at Yuanhua?" Ji Chang's smile did not change, and he said gently, "Didn't you say before that I, a county magistrate, came to welcome people with no reputation? Now I am here to welcome my wife and brother, and I only take care of these husbands for the sake of your courtesy. I still feel that price drop." Of course not. Not only did the price not drop, didn't this also win a lot of votes for Ji Chang's to be a gentle and good man? But didn't Mr. Ji say before that it doesn't matter if the price can't be reduced? Doesn't he care about these nonsense? Ji Chang's, just because I don't care doesn't mean that I have to rush to lower the price. After all, Wu County Cheng hasn't experienced it yet. Wuxian Cheng. Okay, it seems like he still has to get used to the fact that Shang Guan is a bitch. Ji Chang saw off Wuxian Cheng and several gentlemen, and then turned to look at Wei Junli with a smile. "Are you tired along the way? Let's go, brother-in-law will take you back to the inner office. Your sister misses you too, so go and see her first." In fact, Wei Junli and her brother-in-law are not very familiar with each other. The marriage between the two was not determined by both parties, but started from an accident, and the wedding was done in a hurry. After the marriage, Wei Junkan, a married daughter, could not return to her parents' home often, and Wei Junli, his brother-in-law. Also, you can't bother your brother-in-law all the time, so the siblings will see each other less often, let alone the brother-in-law. After that, my sister followed her brother-in-law to take office, and we haven't seen her for almost half a year. Although they hadn't seen each other for a long time and had never gotten along with him much before, Wei Junli became a little more affectionate towards his brother-in-law, perhaps because his brother-in-law had given him enough face before. He was less unfamiliar when he spoke. Brother-in-law, Weeping Willow has built a road. This road is really well built. Ji Chang's patted him on the shoulder and said affectionately, Weeping Willow not only built roads, but also built some other things. Brother-in-law will take you to see them. Wei Junli nodded obediently, but he didn't have much expectation in his heart. After all, Weeping Willow was a poor place, and no matter how much he repaired it, it would definitely not be as good as the capital. He was used to seeing good things in the capital, and now even if he didn't show it on his face, he was very fond of his brother-in-law in his heart. Being intimate, I don't know what my brother-in-law can do that I haven't seen before. His view lasted less than a stick of incense before it collapsed after entering his sister's house. Looking at the bright window in front of him, Wei Junli stopped in shock. Lu Li. He turned back to look at Ji Chang's in confusion, his eyes filled with disbelief and heartache. Glass is expensive, and glass cups are usually very expensive, but my brother-in-law actually uses glass as a window? Their family couldn't do this even with their financial resources, so where did the money to buy colored glaze come from? The tragedy of my brother-in-law became a corrupt official and exploited the people to get money to buy colored glaze was exposed and the whole family was imprisoned flashed through Wei Junli's mind. Fortunately, Ji Chang's was a good brother-in-law. Before his thoughts could get to the point where his father was grieving and his mother was blinded by tears, he said, "This is not colored glaze, it is glass." After introducing the use of glass that must be made by travelers to Wei Junli, he said to the servant, "Please come, madam, and say that madam's brother is here." After a few moments, Wei Junkin came out with a face full of surprise. "Junli, why are you here? Come in and sit down quickly. Are your parents okay?" Wei Junli subconsciously looked at his sister and felt relieved when he saw that her face was rosy, her brows were stretched, she was smiling peacefully, and she was even more radiant than before she got married. My mother had always been worried that her sister would not live well if she stayed away from her parents' family. Now it seems that she has overthought it. My brother-in-law is gentle and can treat him like his brother-in-law, so he will naturally be better to his sister. The two siblings talked affectionately, and the three of them had dinner together. After dinner, Wei Junkin arranged for a girl to send him to a guest room. Wei Junli took the opportunity to ask the girl how her brother-in-law treated his sister. This girl also grew up with Wei Junkin and was familiar with Wei Junli. She immediately said, "Don't worry, Mr. Lang. I'm very kind to my wife. My wife has been unwell recently. She wants to see the scenery outside, but the wind can't blow." Lang, then you found a glass cube and made a glass window. The room became brighter and the wind couldn't come in, but it was much easier to use than the previous window. Wei Junli frowned. "Sister is feeling unwell? Have you seen a doctor?" The girl covered her mouth and smiled, her eyes full of joy. "Madam is pregnant, so her body is inevitably a little uncomfortable, but with the master here, she takes care of her more carefully than us servants. When the master went to the countryside to look at the fields, he even picked it himself. I gave the sour fruit to madam, she is feeling better today." Wei Junli was confused at first, and then he was happy. It's good to be pregnant, it's good to be pregnant, he will have a nephew or niece soon. Hearing again how gentle and considerate his brother-in-law was to his sister, and how the couple had a good relationship, he felt more at ease. When he entered the house, he found a screen inside. When he stepped forward to take a look out of curiosity, he was confused again. "What is this? She does look like Gong Tong, But why does she look like this? Naturally, he didn't know how useful the flush toilet was, so he was curious and opened the lid to look inside after being prompted by his servant. After looking at the flush toilet, my attention was drawn to the shower room. He always bathed in a tub, and this was the first time he saw it like this. He couldn't help but get in there and try it again. What kind of thing is this? Water can come out just by unscrewing it. Don't you have to fetch water? Also, this is a little less fragrant than Yuan Hua Pan, but it can easily remove dirt. It is made of glass and can clearly reflect people's shadows. It is easier to use than rice paper when placed on the desk. A few cents of new paper. These many things, which were made by the cheating Ji Changs under the guidance of his subordinates, were all placed in front of Wei Junli. After reading them one by one, Wei Junli felt that he had become a bumpkin. He didn't know anything and had to ask questions about everything. No, he is from the capital, so he cannot act like he has never seen the world. Although the brother-in-law is friendly and treats his sister well, as the sister's natal family, he represents her sister's face. What if the brother-in-law knows that he has never seen this or that, and underestimates the Wei family? After all, Wei Junli is also a scholar, so he can still handle it. He coughed dryly and forced himself not to look like a curious baby. Is it getting dark soon? Let's light up the lamp. A person as good as him would not be surprised by something like this. No matter what he saw, he could remain calm as before. 3 minutes later, Wei Junli sat at the table, looking at the small object in front of him, which could shine much brighter than a candle at night and was called a desk lamp by his servants, with a blank expression on his face. These were also made by my brother-in-law. No more, I can't pretend any more. This brother-in-law is really outstanding. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhongmao. Chapter 107. Wei Junli didn't sleep well all night. Logically speaking, when it came to Weeping Willow, he should write a letter to his father and mother to report that he was safe, but he was stained with ink and sat in front of a bright and clear desk. He even picked up the pen but didn't know what to write. The boy who had been following him all the way from the capital saw that he had not started writing for a long time, so he asked in confusion, "Does Mr. Lang want to polish his ink?" "That's all." Wei Junli put down his brush. "Let's wait until we see Yuanhua tomorrow before writing a letter home." His father and mother are also very curious and longing for Yuanhua. He wrote a letter home today. He has to write another letter tomorrow to describe what Yuanhua looks like. He might as well write it after he has finished admiring the flowers tomorrow. Early the next morning, when Ji Changs came to see Wei Junli, he couldn't wait to ask how those novel objects were made. Ji Changs had guessed that Wei Junli would ask, so he specially placed his brother-in-law in the only room in the inner office with a shower and toilet light. In fact, before he knew about Wei Junli's arrival, he planned to select the most talented among the visiting talents, and use the excuse of, "Hey, young man, we are very close to invite him to talk about poetry and Taoism, and then it would be a matter of course at night of stay." And after the other party saw so many novel objects, he had to tell others when he returned to the capital. But it would be the same if he was replaced by his brother-in-law, and the effect would be better. He gently explained the principles of the toilet and shower, and then said about the desk lamp, actually, its original name is a kerosene lamp. It is made of glass on the outside and contains kerosene as fuel inside. After making it, I usually put it under the lamp. The table was used for reading and writing at night, so it was named a desk lamp. Seeing Wei Junli's sudden realization, Ji Changs enthusiastically started to work on Amway. This kerosene lamp has a glass cover on the outside. It can be taken out at night without fear of being blown out by the wind. It is brighter than a lantern, and the brightness can also be controlled. Brother-in-law, do you think this is good? Like or not? Like. My brother-in-law will give you a few It's okay. We are all a family. There will be a lantern festival at Weeping Willow tonight. You can go out with your kerosene lanterns and hang out with the men who came with you. You are not going out for Amway so that your brother-in-law can make money. It is purely convenient to take the kerosene lamp out. Wei Junli didn't realize at all that his brother-in-law wanted to rely on his kerosene lamp for convenience. He only felt that his brother-in-law generously gave such a precious and novel thing to him, and even enjoyed it when he appeared in front of his friends with a kerosene lamp that was not even available in the capital. How envious they would be. My brother-in-law is so kind, how can he be so considerate? Ever since, both of them were very happy. After dinner, Ji Chang's and Wei Junli went to Yuan Hualan together. The banner was still brother-in-law, these are your friends. Don't worry, brother-in-law will definitely help you entertain them. I will entertain them myself, I promise to give you enough face, which increased Wei Junli's favorability. Wuxian Cheng, who was also brought here, looked at the young man who almost looked at their Lord Ji with eyes full of stars, and felt that he had praised this man yesterday in vain. How can he not know if others don't know? A few days ago, Your Excellency specially prepared a travel plan for these scholars who came to see Yuanhua, but now it has become a plan to support my brother-in-law. Hey, he is another silly Baitian who was deceived by Master Ji. After witnessing so many people who were deceived by Master Ji, Wu Xiancheng has been able to calm down his inner complaints very well. Wu Xiancheng thought very confidently. Fortunately, he had already seen through the true nature of the adults and was still as strong as ever. For example, today was his day off, but now he gave up his vacation and still came out to accompany you. How dedicated he was. Although your master was deeply scheming, his subordinates were generous and might be able to give him some benefits. Ji Chang's, Wuxian Cheng, today is your day off, so I don't want to bother you anymore. I just met the chief clerk, and he said he can help you. Why don't you let the chief clerk and me go out today? Wuxian Cheng. How can this be done? Although the chief clerk is in charge of different matters and his official position is higher than that of the chief clerk, in front of the adults, they are all subordinates. Of course there is competition between subordinates, especially if they are all civil servants, and even more so. How can he allow the chief clerk to accompany the adults on his behalf? Let's take the incident last time as an example. Originally, he and your majesty were the only ones who were of the same mind, but in the end, the chief bookkeeper just helped you look at the account books and did something extra, so your majesty listed him as one of your own people. Not only that, he also gave him food, oil, meat, and vegetables, and the adults even gave him a bonus out of his own pocket. The old boy who was the chief bookkeeper didn't have a glowing face in those days. Although he said he had these things, Wu Xiancheng still felt full of crisis. He immediately expressed his loyalty. There is no need to trouble the chief clerk. I have been feeling a little bored in the yamen all day. I was about to go out for a walk. Your Excellency came to look for me. I can't get what I asked for. Wuxian Cheng wished he could smile like a flower on his face. Every cell in his body was filled with "I'm so happy to come out," and he tried his best to show his loyalty to Ji Chang's. Seeing Ji Chang's nodded, as if he believed him, he breathed a sigh of relief and felt proud. I just said, how can the chief bookkeeper compete with him? He was so grateful to the Shangguan who agreed to follow him that he completely forgot about the benefits he was thinking about just a moment ago. Ji Chang smiled at him and received a big, loyal smile in response. Anyway, that's the same sentence. Wuxian Cheng is happy, Wei Junli is happy, Ji Chang's is also happy, as long as everyone is happy. At Yuanhua Forest, when they arrived, these gentlemen who still insisted on being elegant and not warm despite the cold weather, wearing light and fluttering good-looking clothes, had all gotten up one after another, and were standing on the second floor of the inn looking at Yuanhua not far away downstairs. Forest. I have to say that Yuanhua is really beautiful. A single flower is pretty enough. When put together, when the wind blows, some beautiful light pink petals fall off. The entire forest is covered with petals, like a fairyland. If there is a favorable wind, it can bring a wave of elegant fragrance here. Isn't it that these gentlemen came all the way to this little place called Weeping Willow just to see this? Now that they got what they wanted, everyone was satisfied without eating. After washing, they gathered together to watch. Some people even started to compose a poem on the spot, and the companions next to them also praised them very much. They were quite satisfied after seeing what they wanted to see. The fatigue and bumps along the way, the exhaustion of not being able to find a place to stay and having to live on the carriage at night, were all wiped away after seeing such a beautiful scene. It's not a worthwhile trip, it's not a worthwhile trip. Then Ji Chang's came. He said enthusiastically that since you are Junli's friends, you are also my friends. There will be a lantern party tonight at my Weeping Willow to commemorate Miss Yuen'er. I hope everyone can come and participate. Initially, these gentlemen were not very interested, as their hearts were still immersed in the beautiful Yuanhua forest, but when they heard that the Lantern Festival was in memory of Miss Yuen'er, they immediately became energetic. But in memory of the infatuated woman who turned into a Yuanhua tree. Does Miss Yuen'er really exist? Ji Chang smiled slightly. There should be Yuen'er. This legend has always been passed down orally in Kawiliu. It's just that it's so old that I don't know exactly which dynasty it was in. After getting the official certification, the husbands became more and more excited, and they started asking questions. Do you know where Yuen'er lived? Can we go and have a look? I heard that Yuen'er once wrote a poem to express his love for me. Is it true? Ji Chang's had expected this, otherwise he wouldn't have tricked Wuxian Cheng out. He looked at Wuxian Cheng next to him quite naturally. Wuxian Cheng should know these folklore better than me. You can ask him. Original author Wuxian Cheng. He coughed dryly, stiffened his expression, and smiled dryly. Miss Yuen'er did write a poem. Waiting for Wuxian Cheng to recite the poem dryly, all the gentlemen nodded, recalling the poem in their hearts. Although the sentence is plain, it can be seen that it is sincere. I heard that Miss Yuen'er is just a commoner woman, and even how to read was taught by her fiancé-in-law. It's good to be able to write such a poem. Others looked with pity in their eyes. You can tell as soon as you hear it, the person who wrote this poem must be a delicate and beautiful woman, otherwise, how could she have such a clear and infatuated heart? Ji Chang's almost couldn't hold back his laughter and exhaled. When Lang Jun, who said this, looked at him with a look for recognition, he glanced at the side with his narrow eyes and mustache. Da Nte, Ang's middle-aged man Wuxian Cheng. Nodding seriously, well, you're right. Very good, this group of tourists was easier to fool than he thought. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 108. Thanks to the author Wu Xiancheng's detailed description of the story of Yuen'er's infatuation turned into a tree, the young man's interest was aroused, and everyone was looking forward to the Lantern Festival at night. The Lantern Festival, is naturally only turned on at night. In fact, this is Kawiliu's first Lantern Festival. In the past, Kawiliu was a poor group, and most of the people did not have enough to eat. Who had the time to hold a Lantern Festival? But things are different now, because before Ji Chang's took office, he would either build something here or there, and more labor would be needed. He was not the kind of official who only needed labor but no money to exploit people. Because Yuanhui and big and small shopping streets make money, Ji Chang's is very generous. Not only does he give enough wages, he also provides food and accommodation. In the past, when people heard that the government was going to build something, they would be extremely panicked and worried about the choice of the mainstay of the family. When they go to work, they don't need to be paid. Sometimes they even have to bring their own food. But it's different now. When I heard that Mr. G was looking for someone to do something, everyone ran faster than anyone else. I was afraid they might run slower. Can't take this opportunity. After exchanging labor for money, aren't our hands much richer than in previous years? I heard that there will also be draws and guessing lantern riddles for prizes at the Lantern Festival. Although most of them are illiterate, what if they guess it right? Therefore, the first Lantern Festival of Kawiliu was quite lively. The common people of Kawiliu who rarely participated in this kind of recreational activities all found the latest clothes at home and put them on. The clean-loving people who were influenced by Ji Chang's even more so. They all consciously went to the bathhouse to take a bath before coming, and the girls of the right age gritted their teeth and bought new clothes with the money they saved so that they could dress up beautifully and go to the Lantern Festival. Yes, unmarried girls also come to the Lantern Festival. This was also Ji Chang's idea, because this Lantern Festival was to commemorate the non-existent girl Yuan'er, and he couldn't use this excuse every year in the future, so he directly positioned the Lantern Festival as a mask festival. Everyone will be given a mask when entering. Everyone puts on the mask and then enters to play. Because others cannot see their faces when wearing the mask, it is exciting and can do things that they usually dare not do without any scruples. For example, a scholar who is studying should be steady and self-possessed, but no one will recognize him after wearing a mask. He can also go to watch lively sideshows, cheer generously and reward money, and he can throw pots with a childlike innocence without fear of others. Make fun of yourself for being childish. Especially those young girls who rarely go out on weekdays can come to the lively Lantern Festival with their peers and are not afraid of being criticized. If they are shy, they can just hide under the mask and play around calmly. Moreover, this is a government official. There are very few elders who would stop the Lantern Festival held. For them, this is simply a huge temptation. This kind of large-scale event must be lively to be held. This is the first one. If Ji Chang's doesn't do something fancy, he is really afraid that not many people will come by then, which will be really embarrassing. Fortunately, his good intentions were not in vain, because he had been promoting it before. Recently, he sent people to play gongs and drums to walk around the entire Weeping Willow to inform everyone that the Weeping Willow Lantern Festival will be held tonight. Remember to come and participate. Ji Chang's took this when a young man from the capital entered the Lantern Festival. A long queue had already formed at the scene under the command of the staff, who was very proud of him. It was not just the support of the common people of Weeping Willow that made him proud. These literati had just arrived at Weeping Willow last night. They were tired and had no intention of seeing the scenery of Weeping Willow. After being taken to the inn, they slept in the room. The next day in the early morning, everyone gathered together to watch Yuanhua, so no one went to the street to watch it. When I saw it today, everyone was surprised. This street is actually cleaner and dirtier than the one in the capital. There isn't even a trace of dirt along the way. More than just filth, brother, look at these people. When the fellow literati heard this, they subconsciously looked at the people walking on the road. They all had smiles on their faces. Although some were wearing new clothes and some were wearing patched clothes, they all had faces. They were clean, their hair was neatly combed, their clothes were washed, and even the straw sandals or boots they were wearing were not covered in mud like the civilians they came into contact with along the way. Aren't you saying that Weeping Willow is poor? Why do I think the people here seem to be living a prosperous life? Ji Chang's, who was walking in front, had sharp ears. When he heard these words, he stopped for a moment and explained with a smile, "It's not like everyone lives a rich life. It's just that I have a free bathhouse in Weeping Lu. No matter where I go, there is hot water. It's hard to go into the shopping streets, the clothes must be clean, and gradually the people have developed the habit of washing frequently. In such a poor place, there is a free bathhouse that provides hot water 12 hours a day. There is no such place in the capital. Facing the surprised gazes of a group of literati, Ji Chang's coughed dryly, turned away as if embarrassed and said no more. The ancients were reserved and modest. How could he brazenly praise his own achievements? Then you have to let others praise you. So he made a silent look like I don't want to continue this topic. The hand under his sleeve took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, and gently touched Wuxian Chen next to him, who was thinking about whether his wife and children would come to the Lantern Festival. Push forward. The curious men immediately looked at Wuxian Chen. Wuxian Chen, who had already thought about the possibility of meeting his family by chance, said, "You don't know, this bathhouse was built by our Lord, and it was also our Lord's decision not to charge a penny. The bathhouse was built, all the expenses will be borne by the adults." He said, "How much our Lord Ji loves the people like his own son." All the literati looked at Ji Chang's with admiration. Another man asked, "There is no filth on this street. Is it also under the control of the government? It is very refreshing at first glance. Who doesn't like a clean and filthy environment?" However, in ancient times, there was no centralized place to dispose of garbage. Most poor people solved their physical problems everywhere and threw away garbage wherever they were. Even those who were dirty or not were used to it anyway. There are people who specialize in cleaning up, but no matter how fast they clean up, they can't stop the number of people making garbage. Even in a place like the capital, it's still impossible to achieve the cleanliness of the Weeping Willows today. Therefore, these people immediately felt that it was the government's compulsory control that could create such clean and beautiful streets. This is really not true. Of course, it must be Ji Chang's contribution that Weeping Willow is what it is today. But how could he have the nerve to praise himself? So he gently pushed Wuxian Chen again. Wuxian Chen, who was pushed further ahead again. Although he has said it countless times in his heart, he still wants to say it again, this boss is really a bitch. He took a deep breath and once again showed a professional smile on his face. This is all a spontaneous act of the local people, or is it because adults have previously discovered that redding fertilizer can make the land more fertile and the grain grows better, so he taught him how to make fertilizer. To the people. Since then, open defecation has disappeared from Weeping Willow. Even if you can't hold it in anymore, you will find a way to take it home after you are done with it. In the past, the most common and difficult to clean up garbage on the street, such as rotten vegetables and things excreted by the human body, have now become garbage. It is a treasure in the eyes of the people. Not to mention throwing it around, if you see it on the road, you will pick it up and put it in your own land. In addition, Ji Chang's has arranged for cleaning people, so the cement floor is not afraid of water splashing. How can it be unclean? When Wuxian Chen explained in this way, these gentlemen all looked at Ji Chang's with a little more admiration. They have never been to Weeping Lu, but they have heard about what a poor place is like. Now Ji Chang's has single-handedly made the people of Weeping Lu healthy and the environment clean. This is something that many county magistrates cannot do. Ji Chang's looked at them and lowered his head slightly as if he was embarrassed, and said in a very good-tempered and humble manner, "Wuxian Prime Minister exaggerated. The entire county government worked together to make Weeping Willow look like this. How can we just say that he is the official, the credit of one person?" After saying that, he tapped Wuxian Chen very skillfully. Wuxian Chen, who is also quite skilled, said, "Your Excellency, you are humble. Your achievements can be seen in the entire Weeping Willow." The gentlemen couldn't get the alpaca that Wuxian Chen had in mind at all, and they all sighed. Master Ji not only loves the people like his own son, but is also so indifferent to fame and wealth, without mentioning a word about his achievements. If it weren't for Wuxian Chen, we would still be here. I didn't know you had done so much for Weeping Willow. Ji Chang's let out a long sigh and waved his hand. I just did what I should do. Why bother showing off such a small thing? He silently touched Wuxian Chen, who had just been called to the place where he was called, and said, "Hey, sir, You are always like this, never greedy for merit, fame, and fortune. The gentlemen were immediately more impressed. This Master G is indeed indifferent to fame and wealth, and is upright and upright. He has done so much and yet he has not mentioned a word about it. If his subordinates had not mentioned it, he probably would not have even mentioned the slightest bit of credit for his achievements. What a breath of fresh air in the audience. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 109. Chapter 39. Ji Chang's did not use his identity to go H0 Yumi N, and the group of people queued up among the people who came to participate in the Lantern Festival. While waiting in line, they listened to Wu County Cheng talk about some interesting things about Weeping Willow, which was not boring at all. Slowly lining up, everyone put on their hair masks and entered the venue one after another. As soon as they entered, these gentlemen were shocked by the scene in front of them. There were lanterns hanging above them, which were as bright as day even though it was night time. People wearing masks were walking on the street, and there were also vendors who had obtained business licenses long ago, hawking behind prepared shelves. Sachet, handkerchief, please come and take a look at the fine craftsmanship. Two girls in skirts came up arm in arm. They lowered their heads and carefully selected. After choosing what they liked, they negotiated the price with the boss in clear voices. Perhaps because they were wearing masks to cover their faces, there was a magnanimity in their voices. Enjoy. There was a family of 3 out for fun. There was a child sitting on the husband's shoulders, wearing a mask specially provided by the Lantern Festival for children. There are also young children who can run on their own in the crowd. The children are unsteady on their feet. If they accidentally fall, the strangers nearby will easily pick them up and pat their heads to let them go. Careful. There were also old people coming out. Pedestrians saw that the old man had difficulty moving and was leaning on a cane, so they all gave way to him. The old man accidentally dropped his mask, which made it difficult for her to bend down. When the Yamen officer who was standing aside and responsible for supervising security saw this, he stepped forward to pick up the mask and handed it to her. Got her. The old man's wrinkled face was filled with kindness and gratitude. This may be a very ordinary scene in the eyes of the people of Weeping Willow, because they are accustomed to giving courtesy to the elderly and children at the call of the county magistrate, but in the eyes of these young men from the capital, it is a complete sign. Respecting the elderly and Silesians, something that many people in the capital cannot do, seems to be a very common thing in Weeping Willow. They were wearing masks, so Ji Chang's could not see their expressions, but just from their frequent nodding expressions, he could guess the general psychological activities of these men. In fact, it is very simple to get people to respect the Silesians. You just need to make up a few short stories about respecting the Silesians and getting rewarded, and then describe how noble Silesians are, and the people will naturally start to do it on their own initiative. Of course, he also did not forget to make up a few stories about disrespectful old people and naughty children. Respecting the elderly and Silesians is a moral character. It is mainly for boiling frogs in warm water so that the people of Weeping Willow can gradually develop some habits. It is not for a small group of people to fight. Do whatever you want with your identity. Everyone, there are lantern riddles ahead, so you might as well go and have a look. He made an invitation, and the others naturally did not respond. Although they had not started to fully visit the Lantern Festival, they already had a vague feeling that this night would be a night full of freshness and expectations. For these gentlemen who came from the capital and originally wanted to watch Yuanhua, but saw such a prosperous and peaceful scene, this night was a surprise. For Weeping Willow locals, the night was also a surprise. Especially those girls who are not yet married. They are not allowed to go to the streets during the annual gatherings. Not only is it difficult for unmarried girls to come to such crowded places, but they are also worried that some philanderers will abduct them and sell them. The elders often have stern looks on their faces and refuse to agree no matter how much they beg. Now, without them having to pray, the elders themselves ask them to come to the Lantern Festival to relax. Wu Sunyang is one of them. In previous years, she was so eager to go to the market but could not do so. This year, her parents took the initiative to let her come to the Lantern Festival. After she was at a loss, she was a little afraid to go. The sister she had made friends with came to join her, and she timidly held the veil tightly. I heard from my parents that there are many people going to the Lantern Festival, and they all wear masks. I am a little afraid to go. If I meet someone who is taking pictures. The sister smiled and said, I was afraid before, but my brother at home said that the county magistrate sent many policemen to guard the Lantern Festival. There is only one door for entry and exit. Everyone who enters and exits must take off their masks and record them. If you encounter any evil person inside, just call the police and they will take action. If you really encounter a philanderer, you will not go out in a good manner, and you will not be let through at the door. This is all specially arranged by our county magistrate to allow us to have a good time. Yes, just feel at ease. Although the sisters said this, Wu Sunyang was still a little scared, but these fears were not worth the longing for going out to play in her heart. In the end, she nodded and agreed to go with her sisters. Before going, Anyang specially made her new clothes, bought a beautiful red headband, and a bamboo hairpin. She said that although she was wearing a mask and not showing her face, it was a rare opportunity to go out and play, so of course she had to dress up beautifully. Wu Sunyang's fear in her heart was lessened. She knew that her mother-in-law had never been to such an occasion before she got married, so this time her daughter could go, and her mother-in-law was happy for her from the bottom of her heart. On the day of the Lantern Festival, she got up early, cleaned up the house and cooked a meal. She waited anxiously and expectantly for the night to come. Finally, when it got dark, the sisters came to look for her. The two of them held hands and lined up together. Entered the Lantern Festival. It was so big and lively inside, with everything for sale. Everyone was wearing masks, and no one paid attention to whether they were men or women. They walked freely among them, and felt more relaxed than ever before. The sister said, I really hope this can happen in the future, Sunyang. I heard Master Ji said that he wanted to open a textile factory and only recruit women. I want to go. I have thought about it. Now I am not married yet, and the money I earn goes to my family. When I get married, I can earn some money, and my husband will not look down on me, nor will he be like Ji's father, who takes concubines and even beats her without saying a word. Wu Sunyang hesitated, but many families don't like their wives to be in public. What if your husband doesn't want you to continue working in the textile factory after you get married? I have to discuss it before I get married. If that person breaks his promise after getting married, I will sue him to the government. Mr. G is a good official and treats women well. If not, how could he allow women to participate in the Lantern Festival? I heard that he loves his wife very much. If I ask Mr. G, he will definitely be willing to make the decision for me. Wu Sunyang was moved. Even if she doesn't go out often, she knows that Mr. G is a good official. Although he has not been in office for a long time, everyone here at Weeping Willow praises and admires him. To put it bluntly, if someone said something bad about Mr. G in the street, the people around him who heard him would definitely attack him in groups. Master G is so prestigious in the hearts of their Weeping Willow people. She was still that timid, but thinking that Master G would definitely make the decision for them, courage arose in her heart. Okay, she heard herself say, I'll go to the textile factory with you, too. After the Lantern Festival, on the second day, Ji Chang still brought Wuxian Cheng to look for these men. They talked and laughed and found a restaurant to eat and drink together. The restaurant is on the second floor, and you can take in the scenery downstairs. Ichiro-kun was drinking when he suddenly noticed that there were children running around underneath holding something, all wearing the same clothes. He asked in confusion, "What do these children do? Why are they all wearing the same clothes?" Wuxian Chen did not need Ji Chang's to poke him this time. He stood up and explained on his own initiative, "These children are from the orphanage. The orphanage was built by Mr. Ji. Anyone under the age of 16 can enter the orphanage, and those over 8 years old can enter the orphanage. They will be assigned to work. These children are all over 8 years old and are temporarily assigned to deliver light items and messages at Weeping Willow." He explained that the orphanage would keep half of the pay after accepting the work, and the remaining half would be counted as the remuneration of these children, so that they could have some savings of their own before they grow up and leave the orphanage. The gentleman looked at Ji Chang's with more than just admiration. Mr. Ji, who has only been in office for less than half a year, has already done so many practical things for Kowiliu. They did not see how poor Kowiliu was before, but now they can see clearly how happy the people of Kowiliu are. In the face of praise, Ji Chang's was not proud at all, but waved his hands in shame. "It's nothing, I just did my duty as an official. Which sense can do this? Which organ can feed so many people by itself? Which organ can say that it is an orphanage? It is an orphanage. Look at the police officers below who are bulging with muscles and make people feel safe. However, the people are not afraid. Instead, they greet each other with a smile. It is obvious that these police officers have a lot of interest in the people. How kind is your position in your heart? This is the real family of officials and people." A gust of wind blew, and the petals from the scattered yuanhua trees on the roadside fell off, falling on the clean and tidy streets, almost forming a beautiful painting that people couldn't bear to break. The gentlemen sat by the railings of the restaurant, looking at this scene. They were all a little crazy. In this line of work, I have admired good flowers, tasted good wine, traveled to lantern festivals, seen magnificent scenery, and also met Mr. Ji, a good official with a gentle and harmless temperament, who is warm and hospitable and talented, and who can have such a hard-working official. Value. They stayed at Weeping Willow for nearly a month, and when the flowers were gone, they reluctantly left. After returning to the capital, he published all the poems and articles he had written in praise of Kowiliu and Ji Chang's, and expressed his praise. They either have a good family background, have some reputation, have some time to spare, and have money, otherwise they wouldn't be able to just go to a place as far away as Weeping Willow in a group. Now that they have done this, half of the people in the capital know about it. The Weeping Willows are very different now, very prosperous. The hero who caused all of this was King Ji Chang's, who had a beautiful face, was self-denial, dedicated to doing practical things, never boasted about his own achievements, and was so humble that even when his subordinates mentioned his own achievements, he was embarrassed not to let them continue. Everyone knows I'm a good man. Author, Tang Zhonmao. Chapter 110. If word of what Ji Chang's did for Weeping Lu reached the capital, the Wei family would be the happiest. Especially Mrs. Wei, her daughter was raised like jewels by her side until she was a good old age. From childhood to adulthood, she read and practiced calligraphy, embroidered and made clothes, drank tea, took care of the accounts and took care of the family affairs. All the things that a daughter from aristocratic family should learn were not missed. I learned them all, and learned them very well. In addition, Wei Junkin has always been outstanding in the capital with her stunning appearance and gentle temperament. Even though Mrs. Wei has never thought about letting her daughter go up to the royal family and marry into the palace, in the heart of a mother, her eldest daughter is no one can match it. Before that incident happened, Mrs. Wei was already looking for a husband for her daughter. She was very selective at that time. She couldn't do it if her family background was too high, because she was afraid that her husband's family would bully others. She couldn't do it if her family background was too low, because she was afraid that her daughter would suffer hardship if she got married. Must be well educated, have good conduct, and preferably have a considerate temperament. It is best if he is the eldest son in the family. He will not be afraid of having a hard time in the future when he goes out to the branch house, and his temperament is more stable than those who are younger brothers. As a result, before the candidate was selected, her daughter was promised a marriage that she had never heard of or seen before, and she didn't even know where the person was from. Although this person later won the Jinchi and became an official in the court, at that time, there were many people who were jealous of Master Wei's refusal to take concubines, and only Mrs. Wei in the courtyard secretly rejoiced in his misfortune. Everyone can see how outstanding Wei Junkan is, and knows that if nothing unexpected happens, she will definitely marry a good family and live a peaceful life under the care of her parents. It is precisely because of this that it became even more tragic when she married a merchant in an accident. Mrs. Wei couldn't eat well or sleep well during that period. During the day, she had to work hard to deal with people who wanted to laugh at her, which made her physically and mentally exhausted. Even after Wei Junkan later left the capital with Ji Changs and went to Weeping Willow, some people who didn't deal with her at gatherings would still bring the topic to this point to stab her. Mrs. Wei is a gentle person. Even if she is upset in her heart, she still has to maintain her image and smile on the surface. Don't you feel aggrieved? It's frustrating. But there's nothing you can do about being aggrieved. What others say is the truth. It is true that merchants are not ranked high and are sent to poverty-stricken places like Weeping Willow. Now it seems that the direction of the wind has changed overnight. Mrs. Wei, who originally thought that her son-in-law was just a yuan who a pancake, became energetic when she heard the news from the capital. At the banquet, although she didn't say anything big, she still showed off her wealth without leaving a trace. No, this child is very filial. When Yuan Huapan made it, he hurriedly delivered it to us. I am already so old and don't need much, so I divided some with my friends. Yes, the young couple are in a good relationship. Didn't my second brother come back yesterday? He told me that my eldest daughter is pregnant. Hey, my uncle is already considerate, and now he looks after his sister. Eyeball-like, he said that he thought the vegetables he bought were not fresh, so he bought a piece of land and planted them himself and took good care of them. The vegetables he grew were juicy and he gave them to my eldest daughter. Really? You heard that my uncle came up with the idea of Yuan Hui to do it for my girl? I don't know about that. How can I have the nerve to ask about what happened to the young couple before? Yes, even though we are far away, my uncle has not missed any messages during the holidays. I feel comfortable knowing that he is considerate and good to my eldest daughter. After successfully satisfying herself and seeing the faces of those who used to laugh at her for raising a daughter in vain, Mrs. Wei was satisfied and stopped talking anymore. As soon as she returned home, she immediately called someone to call Wei Junli, who was still sleeping, into her yard and asked him if what his brother-in-law said in the capital was true. Wei Junli was sleeping. He was already exhausted from the long journey. When he came back, he saw his parents sleeping on the bed. He was still yawning when he was pulled up. When I went to my mother's yard and heard that I was asking about his brother-in-law, I immediately became energetic, with "I'm not sleepy if you want to ask" this written all over my face. No, it's all true. My son has seen it with his own eyes. The Yuanhua forest is under the inn. When you stop on the second floor, you can not only see the Yuanhua ground, but also the appearance of Kawiliu County. In the early morning, we can also wait for the sunrise. It's as beautiful as a painting. Of course the Lantern Festival is real, but I think their description is not detailed enough. The day of the Lantern Festival was much more lively than what they said. There was everything, everyone was wearing a mask, there were jugglers, snack sellers, and candy sellers. There are also various lantern riddles, and the rewards for guessing them are different. Not all are coins or lanterns, but those who guess the lantern riddles correctly are also asked to compose a poem, which is very fun. There is an orphanage, and my brother-in-law even took his son to visit it. My mother didn't know it. Now my sister is so prestigious. She goes to the orphanage most often. The children there respect her. I also heard that my brother-in-law earns a lot of money. Sister, if he wants to buy something, he still has to ask her for money. As expected of mother and son, they speak in the same way and tone. This is a conversation with one's own mother, and there is no need to be as particular as when communicating with people outside. Wei Junli was just talking here and there. Fortunately, this was a matter for his mother to listen to his daughter and son-in-law. Even if he said Mrs. Wei still listened with interest to the confusion. Hearing this, he interrupted him and asked with some worry, "Your sister is also a good-tempered person at home. Why is she acting like this to my uncle? No matter how good-tempered my uncle is, he is still a husband and an official. You can't keep all your money, right? Hey, mother, you don't know that my brother-in-law did this on purpose. He is very popular in Kowloon now. Many merchants come to Kowloon and look for my brother-in-law. He tells them every time that all the money in his family is in my wife's hands. Well, he doesn't have any money on him and it's not convenient for him to go out. From what I see, this was all agreed upon by my sister and brother-in-law." After listening to Wei Junli's explanation, Mrs. Wei felt relieved and recited Ba several times. So, my uncle is really so capable, and his reputation has spread. I wonder if it will attract the attention of the higher UPS. It would be great if he was transferred back to the capital for this reason. Wei Junli didn't agree. "What are you going to do when you are transferred back? Isn't it because my brother-in-law is able to do a big job in Kowloon because Kowloon is remote and poor, and there are no powerful people living there? If he returns to Beijing, I will drop a brick if you hit 10 people, 8 of them might be relatives of the emperor, powerful people in the court. How can you show off your skills?" Mrs. Wei glared at her son. "What do you know? Weeping Willow is in a remote area. My uncle is just a county magistrate. No matter how capable he is, it is of no use. If he returns to Beijing and has your father taking care of him, will he still be able to do anything bad?" Wei Junli curled his lips. He didn't believe that a straight-laced man like his father would take care of his brother-in-law. Also, your sister is pregnant. When the child is born, if it is a boy, he will always go to school. If he does not return to Beijing, he will be out. If the child reaches the age of school and my uncle is in a remote place, where will the child be? What can you learn? If you go back to Beijing, your father has a place in the Imperial College. It's really not good. It's better to ask your father to teach you personally than to just find a teacher. This makes sense, and Wei Junli somewhat agrees with it this time. But he always felt that his brother-in-law didn't really want to come back. Looking at his posture when he left, his brother-in-law was planning to have a big fight in Weeping Willow. He wasn't even halfway through, so how could he be willing to return to Beijing? Otherwise, Ji Chang's admired his brother-in-law. Wei Junli had indeed guessed correctly that Ji Chang's had no intention of leaving Weeping Willow. Although he relies on his father-in-law, in a place like the capital, his father-in-law's name is definitely not as useful as in Weeping Willow. The most important thing is that the people of Weeping Willow are too easy to fool, cross out, too innocent and kind. Because there are few local scholars and the people are generally uneducated, they basically do whatever Ji Chang says. The adults say that the land should be planted in such and such a way, but why should it be planted in such and such a way? Your Excellency is someone with a great reputation, so what he says must be right, just do it. The adults said they wanted to open a textile factory and only recruit women. What? Women can't show their faces? No rich lady in the capital would be locked up at home all her life and not allowed to go out. The county magistrate's wife even went to the orphanage every few days. As a woman earns money to supplement the family, wouldn't it be nice to have some relaxation at home? The adults said they want to set up a free academy. Not to mention the free academy, we must support even the free mouse academy. Wait. Academy. The people of Weeping Willow were excited. People in Weeping Willow are generally illiterate. Is it because they don't want to read, study, or get fame and get rid of their current poor life? No. This is ancient times, not modern times. There is no 9-year compulsory education, no cheap pens and paper, and no student loans. Being unable to study here is not a rare thing but the most common phenomenon. It is really difficult for ordinary farmers to support a scholar. Take the G family, for example. They are a merchant family. Although they are not a very wealthy family, they can still afford maids and are much better off than farmers. The original owner is the only son in the family, and the hopes of several generations have been placed on him. His family gave him the best, but he still couldn't buy whatever books he wanted. There are also pens and inks. The cheapest pens and inks on the market are not affordable for ordinary people in the long term. Add in the burden, food, and drink every day, and it is enough to crush a family. But now, Mr. G, their Weeping Willow magistrate, said that he would open a free academy. As long as they are of appropriate age, they can enroll in the school. Not only will they not be restrained, but the academy will also provide free pen and ink. Even pie in the sky cannot describe the mood of these people who hope to have a successful son. Even if the academy invites not a great scholar but an ordinary gentleman, to them, it is as if a ladder has been sent down from the sky. Whether I can climb up or not is another matter, but at least I have a chance to climb up. Ji Chang's reputation in Weeping Willow rose to a higher level. Some people who had children of school age at home even knelt down and bowed their heads excitedly in the direction of the government after hearing about this incident. Everyone knows that studying is good, and everyone knows that getting a good name is the right way, but they have no money. But now, Mr. G is sending their children to study without taking any money. Even if they can't get a good name in the future, they can learn to read. Be a bookkeeper or something. There was a lot of praise outside, and in the county government office, the chief bookkeeper responsible for recording expenses was almost a lot bigger. Didn't the adults find another accountant? Why should we ask him to be responsible for the expenditure records of this academy? He couldn't help it and went to Ji Chang's in anger. When I went there, I saw Mr. G squatting in front of the vegetable field, watering the vegetables with his own hands. The watering of the vegetables made them look even more beautiful in the sunshine. The chief clerk became more and more angry. Before Mr. G took office, his daily routine consisted of drinking tea and playing with the birds, walking around the house and going shopping, sitting in his room waiting for get off work, and sometimes listening to a little tune at night. He didn't know how many days there were. Carefree. Looking at now, he calculates expenses and records every day, his abacus ability has improved by leaps and bounds, his hair is getting thinner and thinner on the top of his head, and the first thing he thinks about when he opens his eyes every day is not what is going to be in the morning. I had to settle some accounts today. I found it too difficult last time, so I mustered up the courage to look for Master G. In the end, he actually gave me a more convenient calculation method and settled the matter. At that time, he was also blinded by lard. Not only did he not realize that Master G did not solve his problem at all, but also increased his study burden. He was also very grateful for it, thinking that it was Master G who taught him without hiding his private talents. I was very excited for a few days after that, and I felt that the new tasks assigned to me by adults were specially given to him to help me practice new calculation methods. Thinking about it now, I really wish I could go back to that time and slap myself. Why were you deceived by adults again? It was clear that Wu Xiancheng specifically told him last time that the adults were very scheming and liked to fool their subordinates, but he still did not believe in evil. This time, I must explain it clearly to the adults, and I must not be deceived again. After Ji Chang's poured the water, he turned around and found that his chief clerk was mumbling to himself with a firm expression. He was amused and shouted, "What are you doing?" The chief clerk suddenly came back to his senses, coughed a few times, and kept brainwashing himself, "This is a normal appeal, this is a normal appeal." Then he walked up to Ji Chang's with his head held high. "Let me bow first." "Well, sir." "Well, you're okay too." Ji Chang's glanced at the other party's nervously clenched hand, put down the bucket for watering the tree, stood up and asked proactively, "You came here specifically to see me, but do you have anything to say to me?" The officer said. "Chief Secretary, well, this official has indeed something to say." He made it clear. "The general meaning is that you can't just hold on to this sheep like me. It's not like you don't have money. Is it that difficult to hire a few accountants? Working overtime every day, I really can't stand this kind of social life. The most important thing is, do you know what life I lived with the former county magistrate? That's called happiness, that's called carefree. I'm about to reach retirement age, and I really don't want to be so tired." Ji Chang's agreed in agreement, and waited patiently for the chief clerk to finish speaking, before speaking slowly. "I told you before that there are not many people I can trust in this county government office, except for you. Who else can I trust?" Chief Secretary, he believed what he said before, now. The common people of Weeping Willow wished to put Ji Chang's in the palm of their hands and worship him devoutly. All the accountants in Yuanhua Pancreas Factory admire and yearn for him. Isn't it easy for him to find an accountant he can trust? Ji Chang saw that the chief clerk didn't believe him and felt that he was really helpless. He is telling the truth. His foundation is not deep. There are not many people in the county government who can be trusted, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and so on. Of course, those outside the county government do not count. The chief clerk didn't believe it, so he could only tell the chief clerk what he really thought. Ji Chang's has wanted to build an academy for a long time, but this place is too poor and lacks teachers. Even if you find a teacher to teach, the level will not be much higher. This cannot be blamed on his poor knowledge. The place is really too poor. The teacher is willing to teach his disciples, but no one can teach him. So Ji Chang's focused on these people in his county government office. The county magistrate, he is good at learning and can teach students to write essays. He is good at catching heads. During this time, he has developed skills and can be a martial arts master for students. He is currently working overtime to learn horse riding and shooting. The chief clerk is good at calculating accounts, and he has learned the new and more useful accounting method taught by Ji Chang's before, and can become a mathematics teacher. Ji Chang's will not admit that he has already calculated in this way when he taught the chief clerk this accounting method. Of course, he certainly couldn't directly say to the chief registrar, "There is a shortage of a gentleman in the academy and I think you are quite good. You can work hard and work overtime." If you say this, the head clerk will definitely think, "Oh, I have to work overtime again, I'm so hard." If he feels that he has worked hard, he will feel uncomfortable. If he feels uncomfortable, he will be in a bad mood. If he is in a bad mood, he will not be able to eat or sleep well. Good. As a qualified boss, how could Ji Chang's treat his subordinates so cruelly? So he let out a long sigh and said to the chief clerk with pity in his eyes, "Since you insist, I won't hide it from you anymore. Do you know why I gave you those new calculation methods instead of giving them to me, someone else?" The chief clerk rolled his eyes in his heart. What else could be the reason? Of course, it was because he had many seniority and experience and learned quickly, so he could quickly learn to continue being a social animal. Ji Chang's, you have also been sitting in the position of chief clerk for many years. Now that I have the opportunity to give you a hand, how can I not do it? Chief. Pull, what? Ji Chang's, We are all our own people, so I won't hide it from you. You also know that I am planning to open an academy. I will not collect any writing bundles. All the writing and ink will be provided by the academy to the students. The chief clerk nodded, still not quite understanding. Yes, so what, wasn't this matter announced a long time ago? Wasn't the account book he looked at the academy's expenses? Ji Chang's half-seriously sighed, we, Weeping Willow, have outstanding people. It's not that we don't have talents. It's just that in the past, most of the locals couldn't afford to study. Now I have opened an academy to provide students with free education. Think about it, these hundreds of students are studying hard in cold weather. Is it possible that there is still no one with a good reputation? The chief clerk still didn't quite understand what Shang Guan was talking about. Ji Chang's continued to be tempting. If I arrange for you to get a position as a teacher in the academy to teach these hundreds of students, in the future, some of them will be selected as a scholar, a jinchi, or even a first-class scholar, and even the top scholar. It's possible. The chief's eyes lit up and he fell into deep thought. Your salary is not too much, but if you go to an academy and become a teacher, you will definitely have monthly money. Of course, I know your character. You have never valued money. You definitely don't care about the monthly money you get from teaching in the academy. But if you can personally teach a champion, you will be the teacher of the champion. The chief clerk perked up and his breathing became a little faster. The master of the number one scholar. What a great temptation this is for a literati. Especially next to him, Ji Chang's was still whispering devilishly, even if you can't get the number one scholar for a while, as a teacher of hundreds of students, as soon as you go out, someone will call you sir and give you discipleship. 100 years later, there will still be disciples to you. The family members praised you and said, there was once a Mr. Liang who was extremely knowledgeable. The chief bookkeeper was already excited. Being a teacher for hundreds of people was something he never dared to think about before. He never expected that Lord Ji would be willing to stuff him into the academy and give him such an opportunity. He was extremely grateful and bowed deeply to Ji Chang's. Thank you, sir, thank you so much. I really don't know how to thank you. You and I are my colleagues, and you have done so much for me. How can I not reciprocate the favor? Ji Chang's helped him up and sighed again. I taught you that calculation method specifically so that you can teach the academy students. You have also used this method and know how useful it is. With it, you can also live in the academy, Mr. Liang said, right? The head clerk nodded gratefully, yes, I'm ashamed of myself. I didn't expect that Your Excellency was planning for me wholeheartedly. It's my fault. It doesn't matter. We are all our own people. No need to be polite. I will only reveal this to you. Don't mention it to others first. During this period, you can quietly practice with the account book I gave you. This way, you won't show any timidity when you teach students. The chief bookkeeper was even more ashamed. It turned out that Master Ji gave him the college's account books for his own benefit, but he actually judged a gentleman with a villain's heart, thinking that Master Ji gave it to him because he didn't want to work on his own. How could he think like this? If adults are really so lazy, why would they still open an academy, return Yuanhu a pancreas factory, and hold a lantern festival? The chief clerk, who thought this way, naturally ignored that all these things were opened by Mr. Ji's words. Apart from giving plans to Fang Zi, the rest was done by their three subordinates. Thinking about it, the adults have always treated him very well. Since the adults took office, the family has never lacked any kind of fish, meat, melons, and fruits. Last month, he even got a bonus that was higher than his annual salary. But now, the master is still planning for him to enter the academy. In order for him to teach students, he did not hesitate to teach him such precious calculation methods. But he suspected that the adults were lazy and didn't want to work, and it was really repaying kindness with hatred. The chief clerk left in shame, his heart filled with apologies to his superiors. Ji Chang's watched him go before washing his hands and reading a storybook while eating melon seeds. After he finished cracking the melon seeds, he stood up, stretched out, and said to the people who came up to him for instructions, "It's getting late, go back to the inner office." He had to tell his wife that there was no need to worry about the lack of talent at Weeping Willow and that she could not find a master who could teach the students how to count. Chief Secretary Liang is very progressive. In order to solve this problem, he took the initiative to enroll in school and do both work and study. Once he finishes calculating the Academy's account books, he will probably be able to practice it. Under the setting sun, Ji Chang's looked at the red sky hanging and sighed, how could he be so lucky? Every time he met his subordinates, they were so progressive. Good luck may also be a kind of ability.